Mm. Mm. Yeah. Uh. Uh. Yeah. Uh. 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 It was a good one. Ooh, yeah. This was a really good song. Really, really enjoy it. Let's make our way. Make our way over, gang. Oh, hey, everybody. Caught me by surprise. No, you didn't. That's just me. We're doing well, at least over here on my end. Yes, very much a yo moment. How's it going, everybody? I'm very happy about this one that we're gonna be enjoying pretty soon. We're gonna have a fun one. Yo moment. What? Let's sit here for a second, gang. How's everybody feeling today? Everybody feeling good? Hey, Team Granola representing. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for being here, everybody. Everyone that's here. I appreciate your viewership. We plan on having a really good time today. We're gonna plan on having a really great conversation today. Then again, I don't think anyone plans on having a bad conversation. Unless you're like trying to get someone fired and you're their boss and you gotta tell them, hey man, we gotta let you go. But that's not where we're at right now. We're just here hanging out, having a good time. If you're new, thank you. Thank you for being here. If you're here because of our guest, also thank you. We're gonna have a conversation with the mind behind a granola, and yeah, it's been pretty cool. This one's been a long time coming. Like a lot of the ones that we've had. I try to get them out and probably a couple months in advance just in case. Just so that we have some kind of mishap, we can always reschedule and get things going. But we're going to be going up pretty soon. Thank you again for being here. Like the stream. It's going to be a good old time. And why you subscribe while you're at it? It's going to help us out eventually. One day. So we have today, as I said, the brain behind granola. We're gonna see their humble beginnings, how they got there. Granola, as seen in such locations such as a Sajam video, being a one of the representative controllers for the Sajam Slam, the most recent Sajam Slam, and we're gonna see how this whole journey goes. So let's give it a sec. Let's reach out to our guest. Let's see if they are ready to go. I'm sure they are. Yeah. Let's start our video call. Pop this bad boy out.
Hello?
Hello. Check and hear you. And let me know if we're ready to do the if we're ready to do the face reveal. Are we going to be ready to do the face reveal here?
Yeah. I hope so. I see myself in like a tiny little
the previous
corner
screen
here. I think it looks reasonable.
It does look reasonable. Chat, are you ready? This is going to be the first time you show your face on social media. Is that correct?
I guess so. It's not something I tried to hide or anything.
All right. Well, with that, let's head over. Yep, that's right. Face reveal, everybody. Here we are, the mind behind granola.
Hey, what's up?
How's it
I loved
going?
your I loved your intro, by the way. You asked me a while ago, like, did I have any material to give you for an intro? And I was
Yeah.
like, I just dodged the question and didn't give you anything. So, you did a great job coming in there.
There was a I reached out to Momo when I did when I had my conversation with him. And I was like, "Hey
Mhm.
man, is there anything specific that you want me to like talk about or say anything?" And he goes, "Like, no, man, it's cool. I'll let you cook." I was like, "All right, man, you can go ahead and do that, but just let you know I'm terrible in the kitchen." I am
Okay.
indeed terrible in the kitchen, so that's on you if you wanted to have something cooked up on your end. But
Froze
that's neither
instantly.
here nor there. Oh no, the webcam failed. Sorry, chat.
Why
I
is
think
this
he died.
happening?
It happens all the time, man. Are you doing the I can plug it in directly into my PC type of deal? Because that usually doesn't do
Um,
turn out very well sometimes.
yeah, it's not an actual webcam. It's like a digital camera that I am repurposing to be a webcam, and apparently it is falling apart and not working anymore. So I don't know. It's just like trying to run off batteries is not plugged in or something.
I don't know. It happens.
Um,
Hey, but you're
we can make
back.
it work.
We can
Oh,
make it
hello.
work.
Awesome.
I recommend if you have a spare Apple device, whether it be a iPad or a old iPhone,
Mhm.
get yourself Epoch Cam, and it's like $8, and then you can take full advantage of the cameras that are on your Apple device,
Interesting.
and then you can use that as a great webcam. That's what I used for my top downs when I would be, doing things like uh, opening trading cards, or if you saw how I create or I recorded building the Gram controller,
Mhm,
that's what I
mhm.
used for my top down until I got myself a little secondary webcam. You can kind of barely see it, but it's right here. It's also an Elgato device. I got hit with the let me get one Elgato product, and then well, I might as well just get the other one because it integrates so well.
Yeah.
Now I'm in the ecosystem.
Oh, yeah.
That's what happens. And considering a thing or two about becoming part of an ecosystem, considering your 3D printer, and we'll get there. We'll get there. But say hi to everyone. Give yourself a quick intro. We're gonna deep dive into as much as we can for as long as we
Yeah.
can. I know you have a relatively hard out, but let's just give a great introduction to yourself. I already said
Yeah,
enough.
I'll try. Sure, yeah, my name's Mike. I am, Granola Arcade. I started this business, little over a year ago. I think around, like, May, June last year is when I
Hmm.
started selling, controllers. I was planning things out and figuring things out for a couple months before that. Um, I don't know, not sure what to talk about, like, before any of that. Basically, I worked in, software in the business side of things for, about, like, 10 years.
Mm.
Built up a lot of relationships and things there, but kind of reached a point that I kind of needed to step back for kind of family related reasons, and took some time off. And in that time off, I built some skills. I kind of learned a little bit of design stuff, a little bit of stuff about the FGC, and kind of ended up starting this business. And I think I really tried to make it as flexible as possible. I tried to reach a point where like I could I'm gonna put this stuff out there, and I'm gonna see if people like it, and I'm gonna see if people want it, and if they don't want it, that's fine. I'll just go back to the life that I was leading before. But and if they do want it, I'll kind of lean into it. And it's in an interesting place right now. It's kind of like I'd say it's kind of in the middle of where one of those two things. So I'm not really sure what the future is going to hold and everything, but I think I'm very happy to be doing something that I'm in control over, like something that I have a good sense of. The actions that I take translate to tangible things happening that people are happy or unhappy with, and I think that sounds like kind of silly, but it's like most jobs in the world are not that. Most jobs in the world, like if you work
Hmm.
for a big company or something
Oh
like
yeah.
that, it's like, what impact am I having? What am I doing? Who is benefiting from what I'm doing?
Yep.
All that stuff is like way more ambiguous than what I'm doing now, which is literally like I sit down and I design something. I
make
place
it
an order for some parts, and
put
then
into
it
fruition.
shows up
Yeah.
and I put it together and I release it and people buy it or they don't buy it. And like that is like a very straightforward, like clear set of impacts, on the world that I think is like it's been very fulfilling so far. If financially fulfilling, we'll put that aside maybe a little bit, but it's okay otherwise. I think and really I think I've been really happy to kind of integrate with the broader community and kind of learn more about kind of what's going on with this whole scene. And I think kind of turning into a more public face in that scene is like it's kind of scary for me. It's kind of not
Yeah.
something that I was kind of hoping that would be a smaller part of my work when I kind of started doing this, but I think it's kind of turned into something that I do enjoy doing, and something that I do. I like. I've always been, interested in kind of taking feedback from different people and kind of incorporating that into the work that I do, and like that
Hmm.
is something that I think I get to do very directly here, which I think is cool. Yeah, I don't know what else might be interesting for an intro. Uh, I guess I'll say like I use materials and processes with granola that allow me to
Hmm.
make changes very quickly. And that's kind of something that I think is very important to the work that I do. It's not necessarily important to like every business that you might want to start, or like every single industry, but I think as far as what I do, I think one thing that I um want to kind of emphasize with the work that I do is like I can make changes as quickly as possible, and like I'm not going to change to use any processes or materials that don't allow me to do that. I've always been I think even in my past life working in various industries, it's like I'm kind of a below average engineer and an above average communicator. And I think that like that is still a winning combination in a lot of different ways. Like I think it's okay to be that way, and I think that like if I have one message for people that are aspiring in those fields and things, it's like you can find your strengths in places other than being a world class engineer, and I think that that's something that like I have tried to take in the reason I'm saying that is like an intro to like what I do is like I think that like I have iterated a lot on my products already, and I think that that's something that like I would encourage, if that's what you're good at, to like lean into that as much as possible. And like what I like to do is I just put something out there, and I got feedback on it and I kept changing it and changing it, and the processes that I have in place allow me to do that. Like I can just print out a different type of case if I want to immediately. If I want to change the electronics, there's a little bit of lead time on that, but I can
Hmm.
mostly just like put a different design together and ask someone to build it for me, and then it gets built. And like I think that is that's been my kind of biggest strength as a creator, is like just starting with something,
Yeah.
getting it out there, and then kind of iterating on it as time goes on. So I think that's kind of another kind of core part of what I've been trying to do with granola.
And one thing I kind of want to like bring up, like
Mhm.
there is um I wouldn't say this is an oversaturated
Oh yeah.
field, but it's also with the tech. Well, first off, if y'all don't know, for some reason, if you stumble upon this, you don't know what granola is. Real quick,
Yeah,
can
that
you
might be
let
a
them
good
know
place
what
to
granola
start.
is? Let's get you know what, let's start from the very beginning. That's always a great
Yeah.
place to start, from the very beginning. Really quick, the quickest synopsis you can. What is granola? I
Yeah.
mean, we know what granola the food is, but but what is granola
Yeah.
arcade?
So at the moment, Granola Arcade is focused on building leverless, controllers for gaming. Particularly with fighting games, there's a whole bunch of other kind of arcade related games that I think leverless controllers are being used in. They're also used extensively in other games like Smash. I know that you're kind of more familiar with platform fighters and Smash controllers and things. Yeah, let's actually just pull some
There you
stuff
go.
up here. Um, but like this is the current flagship controller that we have here, the Granola
Hey.
Summit. Um, so all button controller. It's essentially an arcade controller where the direction inputs are buttons. This is kind of largely becoming more standard within the industry. Is something that a lot of people do, but I'm fairly open to granola turning into other things. I think I'm open to, using the same materials and processes to build other stuff. I'd love to kind of move into other industries and things like that. But for now, really focused on performant, accessible, affordable controllers for people to play, mostly fighting games with. But I'm really all manner of gaming peripherals is kind of what granola is up to right now.
Yeah, there you go. So, thank you for that part because I feel like again, if you're here, you kind of already know. But if for some strange reason, someone is stumbling upon here that they have no idea what the heck this is,
Yeah.
thanks for that. Thanks for that. So, you mentioned that you only started about a year ago,
Yep.
and a lot of people would say, much like how there is a large market for this. There's also a plethora of companies that do or provide a similar type of product or service.
Yeah.
But with you, you've had some pretty great ideas that kind of like really made you stand out from a lot of those similar companies. A lot of them they're going to be doing, a standard um a standard box for the controller with your Sanwas and all that jazz. And you're part of this movement to kind of like make it even more accessible than it is by using thinner boards, using keyboard switches, using higher quality 3D printed materials. And while those couple of things aren't as unique, what really stood out about especially your earlier designs were how like, I guess the way I would want to say is how quickly you can kind of get into the meat and guts of the controller itself without having to be extremely technical, have all kinds of crazy tools on hand. Not everyone is going to go out and buy an entire toolkit just so they can take apart the controller and
Mhm.
change out their components. One of the earlier forms of your controllers that I remember you had it was the trail mix
Yep.
and I believe it was the raindrop, right?
Yep.
Those were your two original. Well, I want to say original, but like those were the
Yeah.
ones that kind of
It was
like
original. I
put
mean,
you
the
on the
trail mix
map.
was the first controller I put
Hmm.
out. Yeah, I appreciate the kind words there. I think, yeah, man, there's a lot to say, I guess, about that, broader,
Well, because I do
thing.
want to
You know
know. I kind of
Yeah.
want to know, like, first off, like, how did you like get the inspiration to go to
Yeah.
starting this? Did it involve fighting games in any way, and how did that eventually get to, well, let me design this trail mix here? Because I believe,
Yeah.
is that your first design, the trail
Yeah,
mix?
yeah, I got one here too. I can show it off. But yeah, I guess to talk about the beginnings a little bit. I when I had my break from working and I had started kind of building a bunch of hobby projects and things like that.
Hmm.
I got into like 3D printing and electronics design, mostly from building custom keyboards.
Mm.
I don't have any on me right now, but like this is a very similar kind of a community around keyboards that there is around fight sticks. There's a lot of content creators and YouTube videos and all kinds of like ways to learn all the techniques for kind of designing all that stuff. And I got kind of down that rabbit hole a little bit of
Mm.
kind of like, can I build a cool ergonomic minimalist keyboard for myself? Can I design some of that stuff for myself? And the resources are out there to design it in the same sort of iterative way that you can with fight sticks. I think fight sticks are really cool because as you I think with your own projects have found, it's like you can learn one thing at a time and like make a complete project based
Oh
on
yeah.
one thing, then learn another thing and make an even more complete project based on that. But you get to like build an entire useful thing every time you learn something new, rather than having to learn 10 things before you can build the first useful thing, which is
Yep.
maybe what you might learn with other types of hobbies and things like that. But
Yeah,
I
certainly.
was I was kind of deep down this rabbit hole of keyboards when I started seeing a number of these products come out with fight sticks that are essentially, like you said, just they're just using keyboard parts, and ultimately internally, the important parts of their construction are the same components that you would use with keyboards. So, I'll take for example, um, uh, Snackbox Micro, which is like kind of the first keyboard switch using a very popular, very common fight stick that was out, leverless controller that was out there. And that fight stick is um, pretty expensive. Like it cost a
Hmm.
good amount of money, and ultimately, like I think that's as I have learned more about the way that those things are constructed, I actually think it's a pretty fair price for what you get. I think a lot of people consider those to be somewhat overpriced or something like that. But I think I could go through it, but I think it's actually a pretty fair price. But ultimately, the core functionality of it is 15 keyboard switches and button caps. And some basic electronics that plug into a PC or a console, and like the price seemed very high, and there weren't really a lot of options for low cost alternatives out there. And so I thought like I could build something for myself that would be cheaper than buying something off the shelf, and I could learn something in the process. And that's when I kind of found out about the GP2040 CE project, which is like a community built firmware that a lot of these sticks are running on, and all my controllers are running off of. And I learned more about these communities. I found out there's a bunch of products that were kind of trying to do what I was trying to do, as I was progressing down this path. But eventually, I kind of reached a point where I was like, I could do this more affordably than any other option that was out there, and that was originally my goal. I thought I could get into the business by offering the lowest cost, decently performing fight stick available, and that was the trail mix. And I think that a lot of my design decisions and processes and things kind of came out of how do I reduce the costs as low as possible, and how do I make it sustainable for a single person to be producing a large quantity of these things.
Hmm.
And that's where kind of my wacky designs came from, the sort of weird ideas that I've had, and I can talk about some of that stuff. But
Yeah,
I think like
because
my
for people who
original.
don't know, because like for people who don't know, it's not like a standard PCB. It is literally a custom cut, custom fit
It
looking.
is, yeah. So it's a single piece case with a PCB that's just kind of held in by nothing but friction. And so the way you like take it apart is just by like you bend it out, and the
Ooh.
PCB just kind of fits out. Gets well, you know maybe I break it in the process, but no, it's like I just did it on the wrong side. But you can just pull the PCB right out. It's in the case. It's in a single piece case, and the case is printed. If you're a 3D printing nerd, the case is printed from this orientation. It's printed like up. And
Mm.
and that was the idea with that was I could fit a whole bunch of cases on the print bed at once,
Hmm.
print a lot of them together, and I also kind of think that the texture and feel of a print it kind of looks best on its side,
Hmm.
or the sides of the print tend to look a little bit better than the top or the bottom. And so I wanted to kind of minimize that top and bottom space by having it be these edges
Hmm.
of the print instead of the sides right here. And so it's printed from this kind of strange orientation, but there were like legitimate reasons why I wanted to do that, and I really wanted it to be one piece that didn't take a lot of assembly time or even any tools or like extra hardware like screws and things like that to put it together, because I just didn't have the time to do that in larger quantities. And so like that was kind of where a lot of my decision making kind of came from. And I would say that's still the most important consideration that I make when I'm doing designs is like reducing the assembly time. Cost has become a little bit less important just because other companies have entered the scene. Other companies
Hmm.
that are able to produce things even cheaper than I can are now a larger part of the scene and a bigger thing. And so I can actually get to relax a little bit on trying to cut as much as I possibly
Yeah.
can, and just produce like a high quality product that is actually a little bit affordable. And so like all my designs tend to have a single piece case. That's kind of the thing that it's not like a hard rule that I'm stuck on. I have to have a single piece case, but it tends to be the fastest, easiest way for me to assemble new hardware. And so the second design that I did is fully enclosed, but it's still a single piece case, and it's printed like from this orientation, so it's very
Mm.
tall and skinny like this.
I wondered because I
Yeah,
knew I knew all of it was just like in one single piece. I tried to imagine in my brain, well, how was that actually printed?
yeah. Yeah, so I call this the raindrop, and I was kind of lucky because I picked a sort of a nature sort of theme for my business, anyways. That this kind of worked, but you see the way that one of the bigger challenges, if you wanted to print an enclosed case like this that's all in one piece, is that when you print the buttonholes, when you print these circular buttonholes
Hmm.
for the buttons to protrude out, you end up with overhangs with the 3D print that would sag. And the overhang, if you just print kind of like a line that's too steep as it lays down the layers, there's nothing to support each layer as it's going down on the printer, and then it'll kind of sag. And so I just kind of changed the shape of the buttonholes. Let me see if I can make it to be
Yep.
more like a raindrop, or more like a kind of a droplet sort of a shape, to avoid those unstable overhangs, and kind of just tried to theme the controller based off of that. More recently, though, through a whole bunch of experimenting,
Hmm.
this is my current design, the Summit.
Hmm.
The Summit is actually printed diagonally. So if
Really?
the print surface is really really small on here, it's this like very thin edge along here,
Wow,
and
that's
I have
crazy.
some kind of design supports that go in like this, and it's printed at an angle basically like this. And I found that you can actually just print circular buttonholes when it's at this orientation, because it kind of cancels out a lot of the challenging overhangs. And so you can actually kind of get really good clearances, even though it's a single piece case, as long as you're kind of printing at this weird sort of diagonal orientation. So
Super
all these
impressive.
decisions and like weird things that I kind of do with 3D printing are kind of more, the idea is functional. The idea is to kind of get to a place where I can assemble it as quickly as I can, with just my single person business here, with no added support or anything like that. So I'm glad that people have reson or like that's resonated with people. I'm glad that that's kind of
Hmm.
turned into something that I think makes me stand out from the rest of these kind of groups and businesses. But honestly, I think that the it is a little bit of a crowded field,
Hmm.
as far as there being lots of different companies that make these controllers. But I think like, and maybe we can talk about this more broadly. I know that you talked about the kind of open source philosophy with the
Hmm.
Graham folks when you had them on, but I think, um, even though this is a somewhat crowded field, it's um the opportunity space that we have in this industry is so much bigger than we are currently utilizing. The number of controllers that are actually being sold, broadly in this space is tiny compared to the community that plays these types of games.
Hmm.
Just in the realm of fighting games, for example, it's millions and millions and millions of copies of Tekken and Street Fighter, and even Smash and all these other games that are coming out. These are very very popular, very commonly sold games, and the community of people making controllers, even though there's a lot of us, is the volume is very small. And so I
By
think that like,
comparison, yeah.
yeah, and so I think kind of just going back to kind of competition with other companies, I don't even necessarily really feel like I'm competing with other companies, because I think to a large extent, um, rather than us kind of fighting over different scraps, we should just be trying to expand the pie together. Because really, this is not. It doesn't make a lot of sense for us to kind of treat each other like adversaries. When if we work together to some extent, we can grow the community to the point that there's more. There's more people out there buying controllers, and more people out there kind of getting integrated in the community in general. And I think that is going to be a more effective strategy than trying to compare ourselves to each other, or try to hide things from each other, or anything like that. I think when you are more open and sharing ideas with each other, and putting each other on pedestals and things like that,
Mm.
I think it's led to more positive results for the community at large. And I think
Yeah.
I don't think every company agrees with me on that, but I think broadly, it's a lot easier for me to take the position of working together with everyone to kind of do this, than it is to kind of try to be apart from that.
And one thing I do want to say, like, going back to like the whole open source nature of utilizing all of those open source resources, um, that is, taking advantage of that, taking advantage of being able to even though every single person out there or every single company out there that is trying to make a competing product, they will utilize a lot of the same resources, won't kind of cap it off and like make it a almost like forbidden knowledge of like what it
Mhm.
is that you can do with whatever. Being able to take that and put that together and package it in a way that more people can take advantage of it, you do get the ability to have people to experiment the with the platform in a way. Like
Mhm.
a lot of people who are going to be making leverless style controllers, they'll take the standard flat box design and they'll kind of work with it in the original way, right? At the very beginning, the very first versions, iterations had your standard sandwas and a case
Yep.
that's like that thick, and that was the standard, and that's what you did. And if it wasn't that, no one wanted a part of it. But over time, as people kind of looked at it and made it evolve, and you have more evolution from it, you're able to create newer designs,
Yep.
things, and putting it in ways that like a lot of people probably didn't think about. Like if you were to show someone, even just the summit, the going back to the raindrop and the trail mix, if you were to show someone that five-ish, six-ish years ago, people are going to be like, "Well, what the heck is this? This is weird. I would have never noticed. I would have never thought about this." Um, and then all of a sudden, you you have a bigger pool of items that can kind of really push the narrative and push
Yeah.
what what it is and what it means to have similar types of products. You can expand it, and you'll come with crazy ideas like that one. Oh God, what was the name of I can't remember the name of the company, but they have a like a design where like it looks like a lunch pail. It folds in half. Like that's the kind
Oh,
of thing.
the Hinge box people?
Yes,
Hinge
that's
box
what
is,
is that what it is? Is that what it's called? The hinge box? That
yeah, I
one.
think they started by they started by calling their company, I might have these details wrong, but they started by calling their company Hingebox, but now they have a new, product that doesn't fold, and so I think they changed their name to Arcod, or
Mm,
something like that. But, now they have a kind of interesting, it's like a fight stick on one side and a D-pad on the other,
yeah.
and it's got, like, this big handle to it. Yeah, I think, just tying that back to, uh what I mentioned, a second ago, is like I think, not only is this space, small and the opportunity is huge, there's a huge amount of, variety that you could
Mm-hmm.
get out of reassembling and reconfiguring basically the same, components and the same internals and the same parts. There's a huge variety that's available, and every single company that's been successful in this space has kind of carved out their own, space, and like most of us are very small, just a handful of people or even just solo creators, and there's no way that, I even could copy all the good ideas that I see out there. There's so many good ideas out there, and I
Yeah.
so I think that by sharing as much as we can with each other and just like building on top of each other to the extent that we can, and choosing what we think is most valuable to incorporate into our own projects, I think that that's a better outcome for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I want to run this business the way that I am. And so, I think everybody has kind of built their own, little, niche in within the market, and each of those niches, each of those little small, segments have the potential to grow, significantly. And
Exponentially.
so I kind of think, that there's no point in taking a negative view, when someone kind of takes your good idea, because it just means your idea was good, and it just means they can grow or you can grow,
Yeah.
and that can all kind of work together. I've never seen a case of, I think that, I have seen cases of companies accusing each other of, uh, plagiarism and things like that,
Well,
without getting
companies are
into
companies,
specifics.
and that's
Yeah, but I think, when you actually look at what those businesses are doing, it's like the companies that are making those accusations and pushing that narrative, are not innovating very quickly, and like they're not
No.
actually like in a position where they're changing, to match what their customers are kind of looking for, over time. And I think that like maybe they're relying on that position in the industry and relying on that kind of legal side of things, in a way that just doesn't seem as sustainable as like keeping on your toes and keeping building stuff that people are going to want. So I honestly, when I look at other um, people that I kind of respect in this space, I'll call out companies like Graham, for example, is like a really good example.
Shout out to the
You know,
Focus Gram.
yeah, Graham is wonderful. The people like SGF, like they're great friends of mine. SGF devices, they're doing really
Hmm.
wonderful things. I actually have an SGF devices here. They have
Oh,
a UV printer that
ooh,
allows them to put designs directly on the face of the controller. That is a fairly new technology in this space.
yeah.
I see a few people are going to play catch up with them and build stuff like that. If I had a little bit more resources and a little more space in this workshop, I'd be doing the same thing. But I think that like having them prove out this technology as something that works in this space helps all of us. It helps them especially because they get to
Hmm.
sell this cool product with this thing on it. But
Yeah.
I think that like all of us sharing those ideas together is really doing good things for the space, in general.
Yeah, it's never a bad thing to have large communities of people push technologies forward or push innovations forward. It's never a bad thing to
Yeah,
do that because then you get stuff like what you just said, weird innovations that no one thought about, or you get the one or two handful of companies that are or individuals in a lot of these cases as well to create a type of innovation that they didn't think about ahead of time. And now
yeah,
all of a sudden, oh, this is something that's proven. This is something that
yeah,
works, and we can, as a community of builders, in the same manner, if that's something that you were thinking now or you're able to collaborate with, that is now something you can push forward. That is now something
yeah,
you can actually go ahead. We have the proof. We can send it. A good
yeah,
example of that, and while I can say that it's definitely not directly Graham's direct influence as an example, we have something like the nanogram that exists.
hmm,
Tiny little thing, size of a Costco membership, right? And I really wish I remembered the name of the company. And if can someone finds the clip and sends it to them, it's like I feel the kindred spirit between them. But they made a leverless controller with the traditional flat box design in the same vein. So they
hmm.
have a
Just like the tiny tactile switches
exactly
and
the
stuff.
little
Yeah,
tactile
yeah,
switches and everything. They have two designs, one with the D-pad, and I think one with the directional. I'm like, oh, this
yep,
is awesome. I could see the kindred spirit in that, right? And whether or not that was directly designed influence is a whole nother story. But like seeing those kinds of things float out there is the proof that like there's sometimes some people want to make the same type of product, but no one knows, and it's just
yeah,
uncharted territory. And then when it comes out, it belongs to the world, and think in the way that, like, at least in the way that, if you're willing to push community and push that open source philosophy, it is always going to be better.
yeah,
Not to get overly political, but that's just who I am. Uh,
yeah. Well, I think it's yeah,
they say that competition breeds innovation, and yes, it does. That's the only time you actually get the innovation because you have so many people trying to push things forward. But when you start, closing off, putting the walled garden, and just slowly enclosing the amount of individuals that can make anything at any given point, it no longer democratizes, and there's no longer incentive to push forward and to innovate. The more of these kinds of people out there who are willing to experiment, are able to experiment, the better it is, not just for the general consumer, but it's for the people who had an idea that they never thought about, and they
yeah,
can see someone implementing it in a way that's like, oh, that's awesome. I want to do something like that.
yeah,
I want to be able to
yeah.
make
I think
something like that.
I think I remember when from your interview with the Graham people that like I think one thing Grammy said is like I rely on so much open source technology that it only makes sense like that I give back to that community, or that
Mhm.
I do that. And like that is and I'm kind of paraphrasing what he said, but like that's a little bit of like a moral argument. And like I think even and I agree with the moral argument there, but I also think, especially in this particular industry, not all places and things, I actually think it's optimal from a business perspective. Like I think that
Mhm.
it's actually like better to be a part of that community and to kind of share those, pool those resources together,
Mhm.
especially when you don't have the resources that you would have from a larger a company perspective. And like
Mhm.
I wish the larger companies would kind of join us in this. Obviously they're not gonna, but I, for example, like I think
Unless they get
you know
flamed so hard that they
yeah, there's really only a couple larger companies that do what we do. And one of them is Razer, for example. They make the Kitsune
Mhm.
leverless, and like that's actually like maybe the only uh how do I say it? It's like one of the only bigger business people in this space that are actually seriously innovating. They designed a new type of switch that they use in
Mhm.
their controllers. That's like an optical switch.
Yep.
That allows for like slower, or it's less travel time for the switch to activate.
Mhm.
And that's really cool. I wish they would share it with us. I wish that that would be something that we could like all kind of use. And I'm kind of hoping that the open source version of that comes along eventually, or like a Hall effect switch or something like that kind of ends up
Which, if
providing that capability.
which if you
Yeah.
haven't, and you have a chance to get a hold of Reina, she is a controller modder for
Hmm.
I believe mostly for Melee. So she works very much on GameCube controller, but she also is working on this project called the Orca, which allows you to
Mm.
have analog inputs on your buttons.
Oh, nice.
So get in touch with her. She definitely might be able to answer some questions,
Yeah.
given that she's hiding somewhere in the Discord from time to time, you might be able to chance to catch her, maybe even ask about it. But also shout outs to
Cool.
you. Shout outs for the Orca. It was partially inspired by the orcas that were destroying all of the boats. So become ungovernable. Is what I'm saying.
um
Become
yeah, but
ungovernable.
like I just think in general, in my past lives, working in various companies, it wouldn't have always made sense to just from a straight up business perspective to
Hmm.
make those kinds of choices. In this industry, I think it makes sense, and I
Hmm.
think it's something that I wish that everyone kind of was totally aligned on. I'm probably a little bit skewed even further in that direction than a lot of the colleagues and stuff. Like I'm perfectly happy to even just straight up promote other products on my own social media pages and things. Like I got I put out this call not too long ago, a couple months ago, for other creators. If
Hmm.
you are interested, and this is a standing offer basically for anyone that is in the controller business. But if you make controllers and you want to send me a sample of your controller, and I'll send you a sample of my controller, and if there's
Hmm.
anything we can learn from each other, going beyond even just like looking at each other's open source designs and things, I think just having it in your hands is a really good way
That
of
that
learning.
good tactile experience.
Yeah, and like if you this is not something I'm asking for either, but like if you send me a controller of yours, I'm gonna post about it on my social media, right? I'm gonna
Hmm.
like try my best to get the word out there about your products. I just showed off the SGF controller that I have. That's part of that program. I have a Graham controller here that's is part of the same program.
Hey.
Like they were wonderful and sent me a controller. I sent them a couple controllers, and I learned a lot just from having it in my hands and messing around
Hmm.
with it and everything. And I think that that's something that even going beyond that, I'm perfectly willing to like go on my Twitter and say, hey, buy this, it's really cool. and
Yeah.
and I think that like that shouldn't be any kind of slight on my own stuff. And it's more just like, if you want this other product, get this other product. If you want my product, get mine. And like I think
Hmm.
it benefits everybody to speak in that way. But like I'm probably further along that direction, but I think even people that are less far along that direction, I encourage everyone that I can to, you know, just think of it more that we're all growing the market together rather
Hmm.
than, you know, we're all
Competing
trying to, yeah, that we're
directly.
all like fighting over the scraps that are out there right now.
Which I will say, thank you for this.
Ooh, oh
It's
yeah,
still unopened, but I want to say thank you for hooking up with one of these. So,
yeah,
and I think that was for another cameo, uh, repayment for giving you
yeah,
some tips
yeah.
on this bad boy right here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I should mention I just released a new product that I'm calling the Camp Kit. Camp stands for Cardboard Assembly Made Playable. The idea is with the Camp Kit that you know, I wanted to, you know, this was inspired by someone in my in the Granola Discord who built a second controller out of the box that their controller arrived in. You know, they bought a controller from me. They were like, "Wow, this box is controller sized for some reason," and like you know, ended up using it to kind of build another controller that they gave away as a gift to a friend. And I was like, "That's so cool." I really wanted something that uh, could get people into the DIY side of things, that could
Hmm.
get people into that, and then also kind of allow them to, you know, reuse something that they were just going to throw away. You know, the box the controller arrived in is kind of something that you would traditionally just get rid of as soon as you could, and you know, also just like offer something that isn't as expensive as a whole controller for
Hmm.
people to buy. You know, that was actually something that a little bit was inspired by the nanogram from Graham, which is like their controllers are kind of more on the premium side of things,
Hmm.
and not everybody is you know, even if you want to if you buy the controller and you love it and you want to continue supporting the company, it might be hard to like buy a whole nother controller or something like that. But
Consistently, or sometimes
yeah,
even
but
buying
like
the
the
individual parts or
nanogram.
something. Yeah.
Actually, exactly. And like, but the nanogram is like it's a standalone thing. It doesn't cost very much. It's a cool thing you can just pick up and play with, and it's useful, even
Hmm.
though it's silly. And
Very
it
much
kind of
so.
helps you kind of do that. And so like my version of the nanogram is the Camp Kit. And so I've got one here. Um,
Hey, there it is.
but yeah, this is a controller that's made out of the cardboard box that my controller ships in. You know, it's got the same, you know, switches. It's got the same performance and capability as a full size regular controller, but
Hmm.
it's made out of cardboard. And so, like, if you want to learn how to solder, if you want to learn kind of the basics about assembling
Amazing
this stuff, if you want
project.
to learn a little bit of electronics, like I encourage you to pick up a Camp Kit. So, yeah, and
Amazing controller idea, and
I
amazing
think
uses
around the
resources.
yeah, and I think around the same time, I noticed that you had your cardboard. I saw your video when it went up about building a cardboard controller, and I
Not
reached
just
out,
one.
and
I
you
had
were
two of
very.
them. I have two of
Oh
them
yeah.
back there, and
Well, you
my
also, I mean, you made a third one for a gift for someone, right, or something like
I
that.
did a giveaway. I had a giveaway where it was for Christmas last. It was for Christmas last year. I made a holiday themed controller that I gave away, and they had a great time with it. One of the buttons isn't working. Someone had to go. They're going to be having. They run a or partially run a local for Smash Brothers. So I'm going to go and bring my pine sol solder, and I'm gonna fix it over there.
Nice.
I'm gonna fix it there at that one place. Oh, also, yep, the other one of them I made for my brother. It was a based on a Halloween box, and I made that hint for his birthday.
Awesome.
He's like, finally, I have the most optimal way to play Brat's Fashion Time Adventure.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the other thing about kind of building these DIY controllers, besides like the learning experience of doing it, is like it really is if you want an affordable way into the space, you know, it's the right way to get in. Like you could just use your regular keyboard. I think my camera may have froze again.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Fix it
But
as you
like
need to, but we can hear you still. That's what's most important.
Yeah, and I think even though I may not be able to offer the least expensive controller in the industry anymore, If you get one of my controllers and you get a kit, that's two controllers for about the minimum price that you can expect for these for this sort of a product.
Oh
So
yeah, 100%.
that's another sort of a thing that I think is a fun way to kind of stealthily reduce the costs of what I'm doing a little bit. Reduce the costs by having people spend more. I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but
And I do say that, like, creating anything something like this, and like having a a fun way to kind of like bring people in is
yeah,
another way that, like, you know invites people in, not only to the space to have their own type of controller, but it also helps them, like you said, create a fun way so people can learn something new, learn a new skill that they otherwise probably would have never have been able to,
for
or
sure.
thought about wanting to do in the first place. So the fact that like stuff like that exists in this space now is absolutely awesome, absolutely amazing. The
Yeah,
like the only reason I got into leverless controls in the first place was, I've always thought about wanting one, but they were, as they usually are, prohibitively expensive. In
yeah,
some instances, just outright not available. Graham being very upright and upfront with their whole open source philosophy, put everything out there for themselves. But I thought
yep,
to myself, well, let me get myself a solder kit and make my own. I won't spend that much by comparison to create one. I ended up with like 3 or 4 of them before I even got my Graham controller and my whole thing together. And by that point, that's when I was like, oh, I just realized I developed a new skill. And then shortly afterwards, I have a 3D printer. So I'm learning a new set of skills with dealing with a 3D printer. I
it's just like
have
your goal is to save money,
my
and you
goal
end up
is
with
my
all
goal is to
this.
save money. I bought a soldering iron, and I should have
Yeah,
waited a little bit longer because I actually
that's how it
first
goes.
first heard of Graham because they someone had retweeted the fact is like, oh yeah, we use the Pine-Sol, and that's like the soldering iron we use. I was like, and you can use USB-C, blah blah blah, and it's like, oh, that's super awesome. Let me look into it. And then I looked into who Graham was. It's like, oh, they have there's some pretty cool designs. And that was like very early into their existence. They're probably around 7 or 8 months of existence before I found out who they were, and I ended up getting their stuff. But I
Yep,
had bought that. I bought a Pine-Sol, and now I have 2 3D printers.
money
But
saved.
money saved.
Yeah, I mean, this is just projects. This is just how they go. I
Yeah.
think like I started from this perspective of like, oh, I could build a cheaper snack box, and on my fifth try, I did. But
Aha.
it was there was 4 tries before that where I was a little over the costs of what it would just cost to buy something like that. But yeah, I mean, that whole like the energy that people bring of like building their own stuff, and the variety that people use, and the way that they express themselves through the
Hmm.
artistic side of things, or even just on the functional side of things, that people bring all these crazy different devices into the FGC and all these other spaces. It's like that's something that I like, even if I wasn't in this industry, would find to be very valuable and very like worth cultivating. I think I have gotten in uh, um, some of the more heated discussions I've gotten in with people about these sorts of things. Without saying more, is like there's a lot of discussion about what's fair, and a lot of discussion about
Hmm.
what's unfair with regard to different controller varieties, and calling things cheating and calling things fair and unfair. And like I think that where I come down broadly, and I guess take my opinion with a grain of salt because I sell controllers, but like where I come down broadly is like it's so valuable to have this variety that
Hmm.
I'm willing to make sacrifices even to the competitive integrity if there was one. I'm not saying there is one. I'm not saying that leverless controllers are cheating or anything like that. But
Hmm.
even if they were, I would be willing to work through that compromise of the competitive integrity just for the benefit of everyone having this variety of options available
Certainly.
to them.
Certainly.
And that also, works for accessibility reasons. It helps people with disabilities play. It helps people with different sensibilities play. It helps people with different bodies play. And like all that stuff, I think is like so valuable that like I'm willing to make crazy compromises to the competitive integrity just to preserve all that and keep it going.
One thing that and when you bring up that whole idea of like cheating or not, this is
Yeah.
it's better for the broader community to have these types of things because like you said, the accessibility portions of all of it, like not too many people think about or care about the accessibility options for it. Like there's consistently, every couple of weeks there's someone complaining on Twitter about, oh, modern controls and Street Fighter and all that jazz,
Yeah.
and mix that with a leverless, and then people are like, oh well, they're going to take over. Listen, the person who won Street Fighter won on a traditional fight stick
Yep.
with traditional Sanwa buttons,
Angry
right?
Bird.
Yeah, you have the best players in Tekken. They all play on traditional sticks with traditional Sanwas, right? Not too many people are high up there, like cheating their way to the top with modern
Yeah.
controls and a leverless. That's not necessarily the
Yeah.
truth. Like if we look at like Street Fighter 6 at Evo last year, the only person that was playing modern controls, I think they were playing on a traditional pad anyway. So it's
Mhm.
like that argument doesn't exist. I don't know. That's neither here nor there. One thing I did see though is so many people are eternally grateful for controllers like this that exist, for things like I said, for like modern in some instances as well, that
Yep.
they exist, because it helps them be a part of something that they wanted to be a part of for so long, but just have no ability or had no way to be able to do it. And they
Yeah.
didn't have a real foot into learning the game or learning and being part of community in a way that they wanted to for a very long time. But it was just there's no way for them to be able to do it.
Yeah, it's not even that they had no ability either. It's that they had 98% of the ability, but that 2% was something that prevented them from taking that step. And like that's something that I think is like really under noticed in the industry is like
Hmm.
we have quote unquote accessibility controllers, right? We have these things that are for people with extreme mobility issues where, the Microsoft makes one and Sony makes one and Hori makes one. And they're basically just like um a box with a whole bunch of TRS ports, so headphone
Hmm.
jack basically ports in them, and you plug in 12 different totally customized buttons in totally customized places, so that if you have like more severe mobility issues, you're able to play games. And like there's all kinds of like aids and things like that for people with those kinds of challenges. And like I'm not saying we're serving those communities well or anything like that, but I think that like that community is something that there are products out there for those people. And then on the other side of it, you've got like a standard, if you'd call it standard controller. And most people, not most people, but like there's a huge number of people, and I would probably argue like the majority of people with disabilities are somewhere in the middle there. They're like almost on the level of being able to use a standard controller or classic
Hmm.
controls or something like that, but there's enough of a barrier that it prevents them from doing that. And by
Yeah.
just reaching a little bit over and taking a little bit of more consideration for people like that, we can build stuff that works for a wider audience. So, like, I'll give you an example. Well, I have the SGF one here. My controllers also have these, but SGF devices invented, well, not invented, but they took that idea of the accessibility controller that has all these kind of headphone jack ports along the back that you hook up custom foot pedals or various buttons to. And instead of having that for every single button on the controller, they've just got one.
Hmm.
My controller has three of them, but it doesn't matter. The point is that you add a couple extra buttons in places that people might need them. So if someone has, for example, one hand functions a little bit less well than the other hand, they can hook up a foot pedal or something like that to that, or they can move the button over to the other side and play with one hand if that's a better setup for them. And I saw this idea and I was like, this should be on every controller. I reached out and I said, hey, can I put this on my controller? And they're like, of course, it's an open source, cool thing. And so I added the same capability to the Summit. And so they're just accessibility ports allow for a little bit more capability or a little bit more reaching into accessibility that allows people to kind of use better peripherals for them without having to go all the way in the direction of like I had to buy this whole accessibility ecosystem to get myself into. The other thing is like I think that there, people under recognize that like your body changes as you age or as things happen to you. Like we are
Hmm.
all mortal people
Yep.
that live in this, corporeal form or whatever. You can
Yeah.
develop, people with carpal tunnel, they developed carpal tunnel. They
Yeah.
they had full mobility, and then all of a sudden things start hurting or things start getting more difficult, or you get in a car accident or something happens to you. And like, do you really want to throw away all of the stuff that you were using before and buy entirely new stuff? I don't think so. I think it would be
Mm-mm.
better if you could make some simple modifications to the things that you use to make them more accessible for you over time as as your body changes. I
Yeah.
think that's something that I think is really important to kind of keep in mind as we're doing this sort of design stuff. So, um, yeah,
And a silly version of that comes to mind is the bassist for Iron Maiden. He
Mhm.
played fingers. He played bass with his fingers, and the triplets when he would do triplet notes, he was going all three fingers, and he was doing two finger plucking the entire time, or two finger picking the entire time. And as you said, over time, like he wasn't able to do it, wasn't able to keep up, and the signature sound from his bass came from finger picking.
Mhm.
And at first, it was just he just needs to get the it's like a thumb rest that you put on top of the strings, and that will help you keep your hands more stable and give it a little bit more relax. And over time, he had to switch off from going pick to finger picking, and now he just plays with this pick with the pick, and it's like it's sort of the same but not exactly the same. But over the years, like it's massive strain. Like I don't know if you've tried to
Yeah,
play. I don't know if you've seen people who play stand-up bass that play psychobilly. Jesus Christ. I don't know how the hell some of those people in their age, and especially now that like a lot of those bands are like 45 plus years old. So these
yeah,
people are like in their late 50s, early 60s, in some instances getting close to their 70s, and they're still playing with the same kind of speed that they can. So
yeah,
like the fact that yes, you can build up that muscle memory over time, but it's not gonna always be the same. You're gonna start
yeah.
wearing down a little bit. Year over year, those notes are gonna be there's gonna be a little more sloppier. That song's gonna be played a little bit more slower.
Wasn't there a similar story with like Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath where he worked in a factory,
Yep.
he got in an industrial accident where he lost like some of his fingertips and
Lost
then
his
had to
fingertips
tune his guitar down to like play it easier and
because they
accidentally invented metal.
yes,
Like
the story behind that was exactly like you said. Chopped off
yeah.
the tips of his fingers, and because it had such a sharp pain in his finger, he had to down tune it so that he
Mm,
can play comfortably at all. And that's how we get what eventually be led to Sleep Token and or Sleep, and and now you have Doom Metal. Well, oh man, maybe that was bad,
hell
but
yeah.
I don't know.
It's bad that we have metal? I don't think so.
No, doom metal. Like I
Oh
don't know.
yeah.
I don't
Well,
know if we need to listen to a 75-minute long song that's technically the entire album. But
I don't know.
that,
I'm a
I need to
Sleep
hear.
fan. I like Dope Smoker. It's a
Okay,
good
there you
album.
go. Was that their first album? Was like it was
No,
like
but
an
Dope
'03.
Smoker's their album that's one track the whole way through, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Because I was listening to shout out to the podcast Good from the Woods. They every year they do they have a multi-part series where they try to find the funniest year, and they just did 2003, and they say, hey, the songs from, or the one album, or the one song from Sleep dropped this year, and the whole 63-minute song is the entire album. So if you're into finding out what year is the funniest year of all time, look up Goods from the Wood podcast. It's usually in a 2-part, and they just dropped that one.
I wouldn't think 2003, but I'm interested to hear their perspective on what was funny.
It's
I don't know.
funny because
2003 is like, well, we're in Iraq, we're in Afghanistan,
well, that's why they have the
Not too
slide
funny.
whistle. That's why they have the slide whistle. So whenever there's a 9/11
Oh yeah.
9/11 reference, they go whoop. Oh man, oh god, man, we fell off track, and I don't even know where to go back onto. So I want to ask about real quick. I know you made a little bit of reference of being able to just to kind of like start from new, start off, and move to a new direction at any given point when it comes to, oh, I want to be able to, change up the design a little bit, and I kind of want to iterate and innovate. Where do those like kind of ideas come from? Is it really just kind of like experimentation, or like when you see something, you realize, okay, this is how this can work, and this is how I can move forward when it involves in it? And like, what's overall just like the creative process like when it comes to, let's say from that very first, the trail mix design, then to, what, I need to make something different. Was it something that's like reaction to the overall space and the overall community, or it's like, I think I finally have an idea, and let's see if I can get it through? Like, what has been like those inspirations for those types of decisions?
Yeah, I mean, it comes from like the most important thing is like identifying the problem that you want to solve,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is why I am such an advocate for like just put something out there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still very difficult to sort through the feedback that you get. You have to figure out what is like a valid feedback and what is not valid
Yeah.
feedback. I think I consider that to be a strong skill of mine. So I'm happy that I could bring that from my previous career into something like this. But I think it really comes, the desire to do a redesign will come from there's a problem that I want to solve, or there's a request that I want to fulfill, or there's something that I think I really want to deal with as far as challenges that people are having with whatever product that I end up releasing. So for the trail mix, and there are still people out there using my previous controllers, and like I am very thankful for them and everything. So when I talk about challenges and problems that I want to solve, like, don't take them seriously, or like, if you like my products, keep using my products. But the little things that end up kind of making you want to make changes, for the trail mix, let me put this case back in here. But the biggest, there's a couple challenges with the trail mix. The first one is all the electronics are just out there exposed here.
Mm-hmm.
These are actually like pretty solid and pretty durable. I don't recommend doing this, but I'm pretty sure you could like spill a glass of water on this, and as long as you let it dry out before you plugged it in again, I'm pretty sure it would be fine. Like, I actually think like the components that sit on here are really durable, but it was something that worries people. It's not something you expect to see on electronics. You expect to see things fully enclosed.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was something that I thought, if I could make this fully enclosed, it would also allow me to do a lot more with the color customization, because you can do custom color PCBs. This one is white, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
but it's something that you can't always. My camera's messed up again. You can't always. You have limited selection, at least compared to
True.
like 3D printer filament. And so I wanted to do an enclosed shape, but I knew that there was this problem with the printing the buttonholes. There'd be an overhang issue if you just tried to print it as one piece. And so I eventually kind of came up with this idea for the raindrop of having this single piece case that uh, 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 it's fully enclosed. The PCB fits into this like an envelope kind of on the side, but then you print the buttonholes in a certain shape to allow that to still be one cohesive piece. And like I could also change the print orientation to look a little cleaner and look a little bit nicer, and like that would kind of be the next iteration of the thinking that I had. And so the next product is like the raindrop, right? And I'm like, how do I solve this next challenge of the raindrop shaped buttonholes? It's
Mm-hmm.
still totally functional, but a lot of moves that you do with a leverless controller involve like sliding your hands across here.
Mm-hmm.
And if the clearances aren't perfect, and if there's these little gaps in here, it can catch in your hands, and you can like tear out the buttons if you're going a little too aggressive on it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just something that I wanted to see if I could figure out. And so I did a bunch of experimentation about different angles of print orientation and things like that. I eventually kind of settled on this idea that if I print it diagonally, I'm not going to have some of these challenges. The buttons can kind of print out more cleanly, and I'm like, okay, it's time to do another redesign. I think the other thing with the raindrop that I wanted to do, another kind of small accessibility feature that I thought was kind of going to be beneficial to everyone is, most controllers here have these tactile switches
Mm-hmm.
for the menu buttons. They're these smaller switches, and I just thought, we're already putting a bunch of switches on here. Let's just do full size buttons for these buttons.
Mm-hmm.
It make it easier for people to reach. Again, if you have a little bit less dexterity with your hands, if you have a little bit less capability to reach these like really fine grained buttons, these are tiny little buttons. They don't have a lot of feedback. I just wanted to make them full size keyboard switches, and so like I'm like, okay, well, I've got enough things I want to change now. It's time to do an entire sort of refresh of the design in general. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's kind of where the summit came from, and where I ended up kind of iterating again to kind of build that out. So I do the summit, and stop me if you're tired of my iterating
No,
here, but like,
I
um,
love hearing about this.
yeah. So
I if I could, I would just like create a podcast where I do none of the talking. I'm just hanging out, listening to them, so I could listen to it in real time.
yeah, so I make the summit, right, and
Mm-hmm.
and I really focused on making it compact and easy to
Mm-hmm.
transport. I thought that was an important thing, and I still think it's important to a good number of people. But
Mm-hmm.
then I actually, I started going to my locals. I started attending. We have kind of a regional major out here called Fight Kingdom. I had a
Mm.
vendor booth there, and I got my like observation glasses on. I was like sitting there, like kind of studying what people are doing and what people are playing and how they're playing. And the thing that I really saw was portability. It matters. There's a lot of people that have their full-sized arcade stick like in a backpack. That they've got a custom backpack made for their full-sized arcade stick. They're lugging it around everywhere. They look miserable. I understand the choice that they made to not compromise their competitive gameplay or
Integrity.
whatever, but to be honest, they look miserable. And I do think portability matters to that extent. But people definitely struggled, and like I would literally like, I'm selling these controllers at a booth, and people would buy one, and then they'd go and try to play some sets with someone, and I would see them kind of struggle with, well, do I put it in my lap? There's no desk space for me to use. If I'm like propping it up on an arcade cabinet, it's going to be a little tricky for them to kind of handle. And so like a little bit larger was something that was very clear to me as like, okay, if I'm actually taking this to locals, and
Mm-hmm.
and transportation is important but not like super important, I want something a little bit more like a little bigger and a little more comfortable. I literally got home from Fight Kingdom, this major, sat down, opened up the CAD software, and I was like, okay, how big is my 3D printer bed? Okay, it's 256 millimeters. And I just drag the case size out to exactly 256 millimeters. And then next day, I released the Big Summit, which is just a slightly bigger case. It's
Yeah.
exactly the same, electronics, exactly the same components, everything else. And this is what I'm talking about with like fast iteration is like, I
Yeah.
had this idea. I just thought about it. I started the print overnight. I woke up the next morning. I'm like, okay, well, it's out now. It's out. You can buy one
It
if you want.
exists. It's there.
And that was just something that I think like, even though it's this tiny, it's like four, it's like a couple centimeters bigger on either side and a little bit taller. It makes a huge difference with like keeping it on your lap, or
Mm-hmm.
carrying it around, or just having it when you're bringing it to locals and stuff. And it's like, now this is by far, a lot more commonly sold than the smaller one. And so like I want that kind of like quick decision making to be
Mm-hmm.
easy. I try to optimize, like, again, like I think 3D printing is the technology that I've chosen for this. I
Mm-hmm.
cannot imagine switching to something like injection molding or, other kind of ways to manufacture cases, because it's just not as fast, and it's just not as easy to make a substantial change to your product. That you can just do with 3D printing, and so I am really happy that I was able to just like make this tiny little change that was able to kind of make a much bigger impact on things broadly. So um, on to the next sort of problem that I want to solve.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest challenge that I'm seeing with people today with the summit and the big summit is it's a little tricky to take apart. The PCB fits into the top here. There's nothing for you to kind of grip onto to pull it out. A lot of them kind of get stuck as you push them in,
Yeah.
just by nature of them being kind of wedged into the case here.
The
You
friction
never
and everything.
really you don't really have to take it apart, but I think for people that have, and especially when this was something I wasn't even like thinking about until the big summit came out, and then a bunch of people were like, "Can I get the big summit case and upgrade from the the regular summit to the big summit? I want to get the new case." And I'm like, "Sure." I started selling the cases, and all this feedback I'm getting is like, "Wow, this is really annoying. I'm glad I only had to do this once." And so, like, I'm glad they only have to do it once too. I don't think it's the biggest problem in the world.
Yeah.
If you want a summit, I promise you, you will not have to take it apart unless you really, really want to. But I do see that it's challenging to take apart. And so my
Yeah.
next kind of refresh of the design, the goal that I have is to make it a lot easier to take apart. I'm doing a few other kind of cool things with different layouts and designs and things like that. But I am also kind of redoing the internals and the electronics just to make it a little easier to get it apart and get it assembled and disassembled. So, like, all that is just based on me observing people using my products and trying to figure out what I can do to accommodate that.
Mm.
I a lot of times, if I don't have a good idea, I'll sit on it. I'll say like, well, I wish I could solve that, but I'll just let me go walk my dog instead. I go walk the dog, and then a week later, I'm like, aha, I'll make it a raindrop shape or something like that. So I think just sitting on those ideas is important for kind of iterating, but also just listening to what the problems people are
Mm-hmm.
having are, and having something out there and having a feedback loop of people in the Discord and people in different places, and like people who send me emails, like all that stuff is very helpful to me to get a sense of how people are using the product, and like just learning a lot about I have made an effort to get good at fighting games, and as part of this process, I think
Yeah.
you do have to kind of use your own products to get better at making them. But I'm not at the level that a lot of the people that use my controllers are, and so getting feedback from the high level players as well is something that's really been helpful.
And speaking of which, I kind of want to talk about how I want to say a large amount of people were able to get a hold of you or know and find out about you. Is there was a handful of YouTube videos that floated around where you did send some out. There was one where I wish I remember the name of the YouTube channel off the top of my head, because you sent them the trail mix and the raindrop. They had a video that actually led me down the rabbit hole of creating my own fight stick until I found the YouTube videos I sent you. The
Oh,
other and God, I really wish I remember their name, but I think the more important one, because of his reach, was the fact that Sajam
yeah,
featured one of your controllers, and I was like, hey, I've seen that name before.
yeah.
That happened fairly recently. And I don't know how this happened, but somehow you got involved with having a controller design for the Sajam Slam, which I'm going
Yep.
to say is the most current iteration is my favorite, because I got to see Coney pop off like crazy. You got to see that Smash players are really good at traditional fighting games, and it's not just Leffen. But more importantly, um, a leftist video YouTuber, a video essayist, leftist video essayist that I watch all the time, FD Signifier, was able to show that you can be an old man and still step all over these people.
Yeah, the
So
Sage Jam Slam is so much fun. It's just such a
yeah,
good, like, like the way that they mix all the different skill levels, the way that they have kind of everything kind of have some stakes and everything, like I think the way it's organized is just really really impressive. And it's like it's great how I think Sajam, like, he talks about how hard it, like, not, I don't know about I don't know if it was really super difficult to get it off the ground, but I think the way that he was talking about, like, I tried to reach out to sponsors, I tried to get people interested in it, and they were like, prove that it's interesting before
Yeah.
we'll invest anything in this. And then, like, the first one happens and it's really successful, and he's like, okay. Um, yeah, I think that has definitely been a good thing for granola. Trying to think of what else to cover. No,
Well, because I like I bring these things up because one of the main things I want to bring out is it plays along a little bit, at least for some of the smaller YouTube channels like Hawaii Face Smiles. I know she ended up having one of your controllers. There was one that just dropped fairly recently that you had tweeted out, and that's where the struggle of that actually got put out there. The struggle of removing the PCB and putting from into
yep,
one summon into the other one, right? Especially because like the summon has like the wedge shaped PCB, correct?
yep.
Right between
I actually
that.
thought that would make it easier to take apart, and I was wrong. It made it more difficult. I
Turns out
don't know
no.
how to visualize physics in my head. But
But
yeah, I
like,
mean, that's something that I want to change. But yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so like with all these different forms of exposure, but like the thing that you kind of said to yourself is like earlier, like of the controller trade program that you're running here.
Yep.
Take a controller, leave a
I should
controller.
probably name that. I should come up with a name there.
Like what do they call those I think they're called mini libraries where like you could take a book and leave
Oh,
a
the
book.
little free libraries things.
Yeah, free
That's
libraries.
what they're
Yeah.
called in my neighborhood.
Yeah, something like that. There was a version of that. I'm going to get further off topic. That used to be at a post office that I had to go to before, where it was a blacked out mailer box, like for
Uh-huh.
children back in the day. We didn't get to the news through Twitter. Twitter didn't exist. We had something called newspapers. I didn't even read them because it was old timey by the time I was very I was aware of what their purpose was. But they had the boxes where you will put a quarter, you lift up the thing, it releases the hinge, and you can grab yourself a newspaper, put it back. But it's kind of on the honor system because you have access to all of them. And they took one of those, modified it, removed it so you don't have to put anything in, and it was labeled VHS, the Video Honor System, where you can leave a VHS, leave a DVD, take a DVD, so on and so forth. So something like that. We'll call it the CHS, the Controller Honor System, where it's a controller exchange. Or call it call it the KES. Yeah, there you go, KES, the controller exchange system. Anyway, but the point I was going to get to, if I can remember, if I can backtrack to it, is handing out your controller and sending it to people, and
Yeah.
especially people who probably never known or heard of you up until fairly recently. And then you realize, oh, these people actually like it, and now it's being kind of exposed to the grander audience. And between that and, like I said, being featured in that one video that Saint Jam did, where he was showing off, I want to say he showed off the raindrop for
It was
that
the raindrop,
one.
yeah.
It was the raindrop, right? And he said, look, he explicitly said your name, put your name in, put the link in the description and
Yeah,
everything.
it was like, oh my god. The video, I think, is titled like, "What is the best leverless controller?" And he's like holding up mine in the thumbnail. I feel like I got very lucky there. Like on the stream, he really talked. It was a very a serendipitous set of events, because he was really talking about a lot of different brands, and his big thesis was like, they're all good. And I totally agree. Like, honestly,
Yep.
like I think that's another thing that I want to say is like, of course I love when people buy my controllers, but like I think there's a lot of choices out there, and
Mm-hmm.
very few bad choices. And so I did end up kind of on that stream, when he's talking about specific features, for some reason he kept using mine as like the example of like, oh, and some of them have this, and then he'd hold mine up, and then then later, I think he played the rest of his stream on the raindrop there, and like all that's a really great vote of confidence. But I think ultimately his big picture point was like, get whichever one looks cool,
Yeah,
get whichever one is going to ship the fastest or like show up at your house the fastest, and like all that stuff I think is totally true and totally valid. I think it's kind of the same with like cars and stuff now. It's like, what all the, we've reached a point where a lot of the new cars are kind of all the same. Whichever
pretty much.
car
Yeah,
you like the look of the most is going to be the one that you should go and get, or whatever you can get a good deal on is what
The-
you should get. But
and yeah,
like, yeah, but I think to your point about like just giving controllers out to content creators and people like that, that is um that's
very
kind of
much a
the
double-edged
best.
sword, I will say, though, at the very least. But
Well,
we'll leave it at
maybe,
that
but
for
like
now.
I was gonna say, I actually kind of think it's like that's just like by definition the most bang for your buck as far as getting the word out goes. I think even for a relatively small audience, and I think if there's like other content creators watching this, I think like feel free to reach out to me and we'll talk about stuff. But I think like when it comes to giving controllers to people to make videos or do anything with, or to like just be a player. um when I give a controller out, I'm giving someone, let's say the retail value of the controller worth of value, right? I'm giving you $100 worth of controller, to someone. If that's what my controller costs, which the Summit costs $100, the Big Summit 110, Granola.games. But
Link
uh,
is
you
already
know,
in the description.
but like by definition, that costs me less than the $100 to send it to someone. Like that's because there's a margin on products that I sell for people, and so like that's straight up a better deal than if I just handed an advertising company money to do ads.
Mhm,
And I don't
very much
like
so.
ads. I don't like seeing ads. I don't like being a part of that ecosystem, and so in general, I would much prefer to kind of work with people that are going to earnestly kind of show off my stuff. And it's just straight up a better deal for me than anything else that's out there. I think I I also think it's a better thing to do. I feel like I've made a lot of arguments about like what's good for business and whatever, but like
Yeah.
I also picked this business because I could make decisions that I would end up doing the right thing is also doing the best thing.
Hmm.
Like that's kind of on purpose. That a lot of that is on purpose. I don't like making morally bankrupt decisions for the good of the business. I think I've done enough of that in my career.
Mm.
But I think like I just don't I like the idea of sharing controllers with people. I like that getting my name out there. I think as far as traditional ways to get your name out there goes, that's probably the most efficient way to do it, and it's the way that I like the most. I also kind of sponsor a couple tournaments here and there. I kind of try to get my
Uh,
name out in
there
other
was
places, but
recently there was a Street Fighter tournament that Punk just won.
Casa,
And
yeah, Casa is
and
a weekly thing,
yeah, and
and
Riddles
they've been so
Riddles
kind
from
to me.
Street
Yeah.
who for most people now know he's doing Street Fighter, but he is the premier Kazuya player in Smash Ultimate. So just wanted to throw that out there real quick.
Yeah,
Sponsored by you.
Casa's every Thursday. They've been really kind to me. I think they're really easy to work with, and they plug my stuff a lot. They're like, I'll just say like, yeah. I don't know. I won't say anything else. They are very generous with shouting me out on a regular basis, and I like working with them. So they're good people. So I definitely recommend checking them out every Thursday. They do a tournament. It's a varying prize pool. Sometimes it's $20, sometimes it's $250, and it kind of just depends on what people do to the match arena. But they get crazy talented players in there
Yeah.
every week, and it's they do a ladder system, and so you can play
Mm,
against some of the best players in the world,
more
and
games.
get yourself get trounced by Punk or Knuckle or somebody like that, and then and if you're really good, you get into the top 8, and then they stream everything. So they always have good commentators too. So good
And
people.
so you've kind of like built up like really goodwill like super quick, and it's just a testament of, like you said, making not making morally bankrupt decisions. Being able to like innovate and evolve so quickly, and kind of doing the things that you want to do with it. Um, I'm harping on the Sajam Slam thing because it's
Yeah.
the thing that I'm wanting to get to next is you're kind of while still being very small a team of just you, as far as I understand,
Yeah, that is, yeah.
just a team of you and your Bamboo Labs printer.
Me and the
Um,
people at the post office. That's
you
about
and the
it.
people at the post office, right? That's your team. Um, there was a lot of exposure to your products, and so much so
Mhm.
that you, like I said, you or I had mentioned, you had a Sajam Slam controller that
Yep.
was, featured in regards to that. Can I ask about that a little bit? Or are you kind of like under
Yeah.
an NDA a little bit behind
No,
that, or
I
but
didn't sign anything. Um,
I want to know about that. That's actually like a very interesting situation that you kind of like see
yeah.
yourself in. Like, from beginning to very end, what was that about? Like, how did you get to that point? Who reached out to who? This
Yeah.
sounds like a great story.
Well, I wish it was a better story, honestly. No, I originally got in contact with Sajam when he just put a call out that said, I want to um uh uh review all there's a lot of leverless controllers out there. If you make one, let me know and I'll review it on stream. And that's how the kind of what is the best leverless controller to buy video came out. And he did a stream where he kind of talked about all the different options. Anyone that kind of got in contact with him quickly enough had a controller sent to him, and he showed it off on stream and he talked about it. And so I ended up kind of knowing or him being aware of me through that. And he, uh, uh, that was before I think even the first Sajam Slam happened.
Hmm.
He did the first Sajam Slam. I think I reached out like as that event was starting, and I was like, "Hey, if there's anything I can do to be involved in that, please let me know." But it was like because I had actually the way that like I don't know if you want to call it like an inferiority complex or something, but like
Yeah.
when he started announcing that and when he started talking about that, I was like, oh, that's too big for me. Like that's too prestigious or that's too big of a big streamer thing.
Yeah.
Sajam's already done, a lot for my business. I'm not gonna like ask it. But then I saw that he had in the first one, there was a couple smaller controller makers that had gotten involved in that as well. I'm kind of blanking on. I think it was the oh, I know. I can picture it in my head, but I don't remember the name of the company. But like a similar kind of sized controller company was involved in sponsoring the first Sajam Slam. So after that first one happened, I kind of sent a follow up to him saying like, whenever you have another one, please let me know. I'm happy to get involved in that. And I had not heard anything from that for a while, and I had reached out a couple like when I released the summit. I was like, "Hey, do you want to review this?" And like, I didn't really hear back from that either. And this is all fine. I don't need to like. I'm not upset that I wasn't hearing back or anything like that. But I was trying to get a hold of him, and then pretty close to before the event started, they reached out. He reached out and he said, "Hey, cool, sounds good. Are you down to give controllers out as prizes?" And I was like, "Yeah." And that's basically the entire exchange that we had. I think I did I worked with he has a designer that he was doing all of the graphics for the Sajam Slam with, the little basketball
Yeah.
character that they designed and everything like that.
Which
I
I'm gonna say it's
a
a
little bit,
super cool.
yeah.
I love the way that design looks, and the way it ended up on your on your controller was really awesome.
Yeah. So they were kind enough to give me a little bit of their time to kind of turn the design into a vector that I could import and turn into the controller. I this is I don't know, I'm debating about what to share and what not to share here, but um, I I think I was hoping that I could turn that into something that people could buy or something that people could kind of turn into. a product that might even kind of help support the Sajam Slam. So there was a snack box special edition that was
Mm-hmm.
branded with Sajam, and it was like
Remember
there to
that one.
support the event and everything. And that's cool. And I was like, hey, can I do that too? And they were like, oh no, you can't. So but I was happy to be involved in that project in general, and I think I think doing a custom controller for that just made sense. I think having it be a prize for one of the teams, and it ended up being Quiet Face Miles's team that
Mm-hmm.
won that prize, and so it was funny because like I had already sent controllers to KFM and Roy and Amaz, who are all on that team. And then so the rest of the team ended up getting them too, but like those three ended up with two controllers. So
Yeah.
but like again, like sending controllers to people is really economical and good for me. It ended up with more of my name and face out there than any just buying ads somewhere or doing something like that would
Oh
have done.
yeah.
So and I think especially it's really one thing that I want to be very cautious about is associating with organizations and people that I can feel comfortable with associating with. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, that is not the entirety of the group of people who can press buttons well. There's a number of people who can press buttons
Yeah.
well that maybe can't do other things well in social society. That I want to be as careful as possible with, associating myself and my brand with that, because I think that this is we've been harping on it, but this is a pretty small community, and I do
Mm-hmm.
think that your reputation precedes you, and I think your reputation's pretty important in this space, and also just again like my own sensibilities and my morality tells me I don't want to give free controllers to people that I don't like. So
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm really glad that there is an event like the Sajam Slam that is like it's simultaneously like as big as these events are going to get. They have
Mm-hmm.
like the huge audience, but they're not associated with either a giant soulless corporation or a person that has done and said horrendous, terrible things. I think in
Yeah.
general they've kept that community pretty well constructed, and I'm really glad to be a part of something that like meets that intersection of like, okay, it's like gonna be a lot of exposure, but it's also not gonna be like negative or bad exposure.
And the other thing too is like in regards to the community that's been built up by, um, someone like Sajam, and he kind of did the same kind of thing too, where like he made sure to kind of like choose the kind of people that like he would want to be part of it, right?
Yep.
And FD Signifier, he has a side channel called Signified B-Sides where he talks about his experience with the Sajam Slam.
Yep.
And he had said that like, for a second he didn't know whether or not he was even going to be getting in the second time around, because the first time around the name got to him and it was a little too late. The second time around they had the chance to not choose FD. And if you know anything about him and his politics, and the type of opinions and the videos that he's put out there, it's these are not incorrect politics to have. They
Yeah.
very much are not. But considering people in his area are getting RICO charges for donating to relief causes and bail funds, and now laws have been passed where you can catch them RICO charges. Though
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff he associates and highlights in what he puts out there, and the fact that they were willing to give him the chance to be a part of it is great exposure to not just for him and to his audience seeing the tech inside of him, but vice versa, kind of like figuring these kinds of things out. But these types of
For sure.
communities do get built, and they wouldn't integrate with other communities if it wasn't for the conscious effort to um uh do like what you said. If it's not someone that I wouldn't want to agree with, I don't think it's someone I would actively associate with.
Yeah.
And all these different communities, they're pretty big on their own, but you put them all together. Now you have all these different kinds of eyeballs that normally wouldn't, have the eyeballs on you. Like, I'm pretty sure a good chunk of the people who watch FD Signifier, they went to him because they want to hear about leftist politics, hip hop, and most recently anime now. They probably wouldn't have thought about watching the Sajam Slam in the first place, not knowing, the type of the type of things that he's into. But
Yeah, for sure.
those are the kinds of communities you would definitely want to associate with, right?
Yeah. I think like just choosing who to be like involved with in this space is like I respect I you know I respect in a lot of cases that you know the organizer of these events get to choose who to associate with, and they get to have their own set of values and reasons for making the decisions they make. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to be respectful of that. And I think that like TOing, for example, or being a
Mm-hmm.
content creator, these people, they don't sign up for that job, or they don't sign up with that job in mind. They don't like the idea of being
Mm-hmm.
the police of who they want involved in their circles, and who
Mm-hmm.
they want to associate themselves with. I get that it's a really hard decision to make. I also think that it's like maybe the most important responsibility that these people have. It's maybe the
Mm-hmm.
most like that's the biggest and maybe most important thing that they do is in their capacity as someone that organizes these environments together. Like I think I'm not totally, this is a real minefield. I'm not going to name names here, but there is there is some recent controversy in my local scene, the Seattle kind of FGC, around certain players who are not welcome at certain events, and they are welcome at other events. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say that is like there's a dispute between different organizers of different events that say this person should or shouldn't be banned, and that's because the transgressions that that person has committed are obvious. They're not obviously so severe that they warrant an obvious ban, but they're also serious enough to warrant a ban from certain places. And like
Mm-hmm.
I am on the perspective of my personal belief is like one of the things that you hear in these discussions around whether these people should be allowed is like just being an asshole isn't grounds for a ban, or it's not sufficient grounds for a ban. And my response to that is why not? Why is it not? What is it about playing fighting games in a public setting that you consider to be so important that like it's not a human right, it's not food, it's not water, it's not shelter, it's not these things that like you are guaranteed, or you should be guaranteed the right to healthcare and these other stuff. Like
Yeah.
it's not like this fundamental need to go and play video games and if you're surrounded
Push
by
buttons
a
in
group of
public.
people that thinks, and if you're surrounded by a group of people that thinks you're an asshole, why are you there anyways? But like what I don't understand, I guess, and or maybe what I do understand, but I disagree with, is this idea that we're all here just to play games, or we're all here just to compete on the highest level of competitive integrity possible, for these different events. And like my preference would be to say that we're all here to uh, uh, you know do something special, and to grow the scene, and to be here, and to
Mm-hmm.
enjoy ourselves, and to like get some recreation. My dog just did something crazy. You okay? Okay. Um, we're all here to do something, and,
Mm-hmm.
and like to do something special, and like I think that can involve competitive integrity, and it can also say that like we should all be nice and kind to each other. And so like from I'm a lot more harsh on the side of like um to put it specifically, it's like, yeah, I don't think those players should be welcome, at least without some serious soul searching and work that
Mm-hmm.
they can do to be a little more personable and less of an asshole. But like when it just comes to choosing who you surround yourself with, going back to like being a TO, or being an organizer, or being a content creator that puts these events on, I'm glad that there are these spaces where people have similar values to me, where they say that like we're here to create a positive environment for people and to do good within this community versus just trying to figure out who's the best person in the world at pushing buttons. To hell with whatever they are
Yeah.
outside of that.
Yeah. Again, it's community that's most important when it comes to, these kinds of places that in some instances should be the main point. It's the main point of contention as to why we come together. Having the interest isn't really, it's the central nexus of how you want to be part of community, but in order to be community, you have to act like community.
Yep.
And some of it is, like you said, making the difficult decision of saying this person's no longer welcome here. We don't want this person to be part of this because that's not the reflection of what community is to us. This is not the reflection of community to me and how I would want to be represented. So
Yeah.
therefore, I don't want this person involved. You can go ahead and take them in as much as you want. That's on you. You're the one who's running your event, right? And going back a little bit to, the philosophy of the open source nature of things, it's like when the creators of, these tools, they share amongst each other, right? Like you said too, reputation is almost as important as the quality of the product that you'll sell. There are a lot of people that will forgive horrible build quality if you have a great way to make up for it and you just a dashing young lad. But ultimately, if you see who you want to be a part with and who are the types of people you want to be in community with, and that is going to be more impactful within yourself than selling out for whatever just to make the next 10 or 20 sales. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's definitely a conscious decision and a conscious effort that one should always put forth and keep a part of it, right? There was a little bit of controversy fairly recently with a handful of people in our local, and I say local, but I mean Southern California in general, Smash scene, where there was some unsavory opinions that were being flaunted left and right, and there was they were trying to make a decision. It's like, well, is being a little bit weird online so bad? And the guy that defended him was like, no, don't worry. I've been through school shootings. This guy's fine. And I'm like,
is that the line we're gonna draw here? Is like
don't worry.
One step below that, we're fine.
It's like, don't worry. I've been in a school shooting. This guy's good. I'm like, whoa, hold on there. Like, how would you want to associate with something like that?
Yeah. I just think about how many people are going to show up to these events and be the subject of, I don't know, bullying, harassment, whatever you're going to call it, and never come back. It's like, or how many people are just going to hear that that's the reputation that these things have. Like, I just don't, I think it's short-sighted to, like, I think another sort of perspective that I hear a lot is like, if two people have a disagreement with each other, let them hash it out. And it's like, well, there's different power dynamics and there's different balances of, what people feel comfortable saying and not saying in public, or like, and some differences that just don't get reconciled with different people. And so I just think like, taking the step back from that, I hear it described a lot as like a neutral position, or like, I just don't want to take sides here, so you two hash it out, or something like that. And I think people don't recognize that like they are taking sides. Like, that's what a side is. That reflects your ideology and it reflects your perspective when you make that decision not to intervene. And I think, I understand that decision, but I just wish people would own it. I wish people would say, like, it's my opinion that we should do this, rather than saying, like, I am choosing to take the fully neutral perspective of not, getting involvement, not getting involved and just letting, someone harass someone else or something like that.
Like, what is it that they
I'm
say? The what is it that they say? The only what the reason evil succeeds is for good people to do nothing, right?
Yeah,
Like you have to sometimes just choose that action and take the side of the betterment of the community. If it means the best person in your area who pushes buttons can no longer push buttons with you, well, that person don't gonna be pushing buttons no more. Ain't and
yeah,
then they're not gonna be welcomed. They're the person you're having an argument with is actually, the one that's in charge of the entirety of, a whole local. Well, guess what? That local probably shouldn't be attended anymore.
yeah,
Is the person who should definitely take the side of a victim. That person is the person that is saying, I want to remain neutral. You sided with the victimizer immediately.
yep,
That's
yep,
those are the decisions you decided to make. And if that's the kind of people that, or those are the kind of people that are going to be representative of who I see are supposed to be part of my scene, that's not the kind of people you would want to be involved with, not you want to engage
yep,
with. And to kind of look at it in business terms as well, short term, you're not going to see an immediate hit. It is the long term effects of siding with the the individuals that you do not see with eye to eye morally, that will have an effect on your business. It will show, oh, this is a great product. Hey man, but I heard they decided with this guy on this issue, and
yeah,
this is what they decided they were gonna say about it. And they go, what, really? Ugh. I don't want any part of that. And there goes, again, doesn't matter how good your product is, and all of a sudden you have that stink on you that ain't going to go away.
yep. Yeah, I think there's like a weird, people make the mistake of um they associate, they think that the most inclusive environment, or like the environment that's going to bring in the biggest audience possible, is the one that has, unrestricted free speech, or allows people to express themselves and create whatever conduct that they want, without any imposition on good decency or anything like that. And that, I agree, it's just very short-sighted. It's a very I think that there are just too many uh, aspects of existing in a public space that have already been figured out. We don't have to have a debate on whether it's okay to say or do certain things. We can
Hmm.
just establish that they're not okay, and enact consequences for people that continue to kind of push those buttons even after they've been kind of asked not to do it anymore. So,
Hmm.
again, not going to name names, but that's just sort of how I see things more generally. I'm not a tournament organizer. I don't run locals. I'm not and like, my perspective is kind of a selfish one, right? Like, I want this community to be as big as possible, because it's a bigger audience for the products that I make. And so, like, I acknowledge that's my perspective, and that's the perspective I'm coming in with. I wish that people were more honest about their own sort of perspectives. Like, I think, honestly, we might be better off if people were to admit that their goal is not necessarily to grow the scene. People may want their clicks, and they might want their circles to stay the same size that they are. It might be easier for them to do that. But I think a lot of those people are maybe also, in public, they will say, I want the scene to be bigger. Therefore, I'm not going to, ban this person for you doing and saying bad things. And I just don't think that A to B to C logic actually
No,
makes any kind of sense.
that's definitely that's not the case. Especially like we were saying, like if we have established these rules of, well, I want to say rules. We have established the idea of providing decency to the people that are around you. And if you're going to violate that decency, there's no reason why we should be keeping you around. For the
Oh
sake
yeah.
of clicks, doesn't do anything. For if you want to do something for the sake of the scene, and you want somewhere where you can do that, find that place. But that's not the scene for us. Like, I don't know how intimately you're aware of some of the stuff that happens in the Smash community, but there is a local that is known as the Mana Monthly, and I bring this one up because it is a well known phenomenon that people dunk on this particular local, because it is where all of the degenerate rejects of the Smash community escape to, because they know they're not welcome in the broader community, because
Okay.
that's not what the Smash scene stands for. At least, you know, at a base level, we're not going to tolerate, you know, these actions, these people, this person outwards belief, trying to hide that they are the horrible person that they are. We reject them from the community, get them out of there, and they're
I
relegated
like
to
those.
this.
I like the
Yeah,
quarantine zone idea. I think,
yeah.
that stuff, it manifests in so many different places, right? It's like there's all those offshoot social media, companies and things that are like, well, the those crazy liberals over in Twitter won't let us, YouTube, they're banning all of our free speech content on YouTube. We'll start our own YouTube. And it's like, and it'll have unrestricted free speech for everybody. And like, well, the only people that are actually going to switch to that platform are the people that aren't welcome in the bigger platform, and so it ends up just being a cesspool of, the worst
Hmm.
people in the world. And so like I think
That's right. The
uh
goddamn woke libtards on the left, whatever.
so I think it's funny to see that manifest in the FGC as well. I'm not sure if there's anything like that in the outside of the Melee community. I'm trying to think of like
Oh
a
no,
place like that. I
it's
think
not just Melee, it's Smash in general. The
right.
they it started with the Melee community, but they've also brought in a handful of people from the Ultimate side that have been uh unceremoniously removed, if the way that they're putting it. There was a someone had said that wow, that guy, how much had fallen from grace. He used to hang out with Armada and Mango, and now he's listening to such and such talking about Jesus, and it's like, man, I used to hang out with Armada and Mango, and now I'm listening to him instead. Like, again, I don't think there's an FGC equivalent to that. But I'd rather there be somewhere where they can go hide and
Yep.
not be representative of the broader real community. Because that's the way I like it. I don't know about what some of them, but that's the way I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen I don't know how, again, getting into politics, I don't know how much you've watched or listened to Hassanabi.
Uh-huh.
He made the same exact criticisms of like, this is what's going to happen to your platform if you just say unrestricted free speech. It's just going to be it's extreme right wingers and the type of people that should really be just being in jail instead of having a
Yep.
platform. They should be jailed. They should be the ultimate form of canceled, being in prison.
Yeah, to be clear, I'm not espousing the virtues of YouTube's content moderation system either. I'm not trying
No,
to say
God,
that
no.
that's, the paragon of ideal handling of these things, but I do think you know most of the time there's a reason why they moderate the things that they moderate, and
Mhm.
that reason is usually profit, which is like not always the best reason, but a lot of times it involves kicking people off that are bad for business, or like you don't want to see an ad next to someone espousing certain idea. Companies don't like putting their ads next to people who say atrocious things. And like, I don't personally think I've ever met someone who lives in fear of getting canceled that doesn't maybe have a reason to live in fear of getting canceled.
I'm not afraid because
That's
I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be.
It's
Unless
like, well, I just can't imagine. I think if people, I don't know, I keep bringing up the issue that I won't name names for in my local, but I have heard that that person has been saying things like uh, um, if I could be accused of saying and doing terrible things, then like we should all just band together and falsely accuse someone else. And I'm like, wow, you're really not helping your case here, buddy. You're really not like giving me a sense that you're totally uh, targeted unfairly by the as the
The
cabal of Illuminati that has decided that they hate you for some no reason at all. It's like, no, I think you're
I think
giving
there's a
them
reason.
reasons.
there's the there's that one line that Drake says that like, oh, if I was sleeping with kids, you would already see my name on the registry. Like, oh, listen, man, that's not the defense you think it
I'm
is.
too famous for this. I'm too famous for this.
It's like,
I
hold
don't know
on, man.
about
I don't think that's the defense you think it is.
that.
Oh man, yeah, I don't think that's the defense he thinks it is. Um, so you've only been in business for about a year and a half, maybe at this point.
Yep.
You've built up a lot of like great products. You've had some great iterations and innovations, and you've been a part of some a real great event with Sajam Slam. You recently put out the new the camps, the camp
Yep.
kits here.
Yep.
You this is an entirely new thing that a lot of people don't think about. And can you kind of like give us like this next new innovation that you have right here? Kind of like talk about that and where did the I know the inspiration came from someone making it out of a
Yep.
box, but like what inspired you to like actually take it to the next level and create a product about it?
Yeah. I mean, like honestly, this was supposed to be a very quick uh jam it out the door experiment. And
Mm-hmm.
I think quick jam it out the door experiments is like where I'd really like to be taking granola in the future. It ended up taking quite a while to actually release. Mostly like not because of any reason to do with granola itself, but I had some stuff come up in my life that required a lot more attention to kind of deal with. Get my camera working again. Uh, there was a lot of stuff that I kind of had to I had to kind of take a step back from
Mm-hmm.
working. I could still fulfill orders, but I kind of had to stay a little bit separated from doing direct new product design. And so this ended up taking a little while to put out, but like really the amount of work that it took was mostly in like writing the guide. I sourcing the materials. I already kind of knew where to get all that stuff. The materials themselves, it's like a bag of parts, which like I either printed or I bought from wholesalers, and like all that stuff I think was really pretty fast to get out there. And like that's really where I'd like to have a core set of products that I like that I work on that like quote unquote like pays the bills, right? Like have a few flagship controller models that I'm still going to keep improving on and keep making better, but like those are kind of be part of the core business. And I'd like to reach a point where I'm free to just experiment. And I think whether that's learning a new skill and incorporating that into the work that I do, or just recombining the old skills into new forms. So I think like whether it's designing controllers for lesser games that don't have a custom controller scene and just seeing if they work. I think that there's I put a couple threads out on Twitter about things areas I'd like to explore, but like one example I think is have you ever played Trackmania? Are you familiar with Trackmania at all?
No,
Um,
not really.
it's a racing game
Mm-hmm.
nominally, but it's all like a time trial experience where the goal is,
Mm,
and the controls could not be simpler. It's like a directional pad and then a couple controls for simulating analog inputs. Actually, it's kind of similar to the Smash leverless, where it's like
mm.
there are buttons for
The
kind of
modifiers.
managing, partway what am I like analog inputs basically.
Mm.
And It's played on keyboards or controllers, and the idea is to just get the fastest time possible on user-made tracks. And its Trackmania has been going for like 20 years or something like that. The biggest content creator in that space is Virtual. I highly recommend you check his stuff out because he edits videos together really, and his editor team is amazing. And he's really good at telling stories in that space. But like Trackmania has also got a healthy kind of esports scene. And a lot of people try playing with weird controllers. People play with like flight sticks, like the kind of joysticks there. Like that was something that people have been using more and more lately because it has really precise analog inputs.
You
And
are you talking about like the controls that people use for Flight Simulator?
yeah, 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 like the joystick like go like this. And some people play with racing wheels and stuff, but like it's funny because it's like it's the only racing game where like racing wheels are like incredibly uncommon. But anyways, all this stuff aside, I would love to make a Trackmania controller. I would love to make a controller that's specific to playing MMOs like Final Fantasy 14. I'd love to make a controller
Mm,
that's specific to certain other game types. You see a little bit of it here and there. For example, like junk food arcades, they have this thing called the Swirl, which is like basically like an arcade controller with kind of analog. They're
mm,
weird, like they're like sticks, but they're like a trackball, but for an analog stick. It's
mm.
very weird. Um, but like, and that's for like playing like Dark Souls and games like that. Like, I want to expand into stuff like that. I want to expand into music equipment like guitar pedals. Like, I think a guitar pedal is like very similar to a game controller where it's like a button and some electronics and an
Yep.
enclosure, right? Like all that stuff is like, it's the same parts I could combine into different ideas. And a lot of those like schematics are available open source in the same way that like they are for controllers. And like I think that like um I would like to jump into various industries and just see what works and try to release stuff as quickly and as possible. I think that's also I'd like to like take the controllers that I have and like just offer more control schemes like a WASD input, for the directions. I'd like to kind of get into like a box, Smash controller, like a platform controller.
Ooh.
All that stuff I think is on the table. And ideally, I'd like to kind of reach a point where most of my time is spent designing and building new products. I was actually originally thinking that would be 100% of the business. That was very naive and very wrong. I think that like I have found that the content creator treadmill is like it's endless and it you have to constantly kind of get yourself out there. Like I mentioned, I had some life stuff come up this month where I kind of had to take a step back from everything other than kind of fulfilling orders and dealing with support. And like um granola's not in jeopardy, but like sales are down, right? Like sales
Mhm.
are down because I'm not sending controllers out to content creators. I'm not managing too many, new sponsorships and I'm not getting myself out there in the way that I was
Mhm.
even just like a month ago. And like that has substantially changed the kind of dynamics of the business. And so I think that like um staying on that treadmill, and it's like a really weird uneven treadmill too. It's like some stuff benefits a lot, some stuff doesn't benefit. It's like really hard to predict in advance what's going to help.
Yeah.
Um, but even just being a part of that is going to be it's a constant part of the work that I do. And I think that like as time goes on, I would like the release of new stuff to be frequent enough that that kind of supplants the work that I'm doing to get my name out there, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. Like the getting coverage from people of like, oh, look at this new thing is going to hopefully kind of reach a point where that is the primary way that people find out about my regular stuff. I don't know if you were asking about the camp kits or about the future or like what
It's
to do
all
there,
of it
but like
actually.
that's I think that the camp kit to me was one of those experiments. It ended up taking a lot longer than I was hoping to get it out
Mhm.
there, but like my intent was like take some skills I already had, repackage them in an interesting and cool way, do something no one else is doing, and see if it works. And I
Definitely
think
nobody's doing that, tell you that much.
I think the other thing is like I want to do these experiments in a way that it doesn't matter if they succeed or fail. They do impact the time spent. Obviously, I spend a ton of time on this product, and like if it's not successful, then that's a waste of my time. But there's no upfront capital investment for like a injection molded mold or something like that. There's
Yeah.
no like intense marketing budget for like I spend tens of thousands of dollars on ads to like get my name out there for these certain things. There's very little upfront cost for releasing a product. I have to buy, some number of PCBs. And then I'll print the cases as people order them. I'll print, the enclosures and things that I print as people place their orders. And so
Hmm.
all that I think is pretty well set up to just like not have a ton of initial investment for what I'm trying to do, and just kind of reach a point where I'm releasing lots and lots of new stuff that is weird and not necessarily like a proven idea. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And that can be having those kinds of things that just don't work is going to be totally fine. And like that's kind of like the camp kit to me is like if it fails, well, I just got a bunch of like extra keyboard switches that I'll use in controllers. It really does not affect anything, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I think that's kind of the goal with all those products like that.
Yeah. I think like you're saying, the kind of the weirder you can get, the better.
Sure.
Yeah. Why not? Let's get weird. The weird is always good. Weird has never been a bad thing unless you're a
Yeah.
creepy.
I think weird and small is also like I think it's if I'm in a lot of different spaces, it's a little bit more durable than if I'm all in one product.
Yeah.
I think like it's this weird. There's this very weird dynamic where like right now the controller industry is there's a bunch of small creators like me that are kind of doing unique, somewhat more artisanal, but slightly more large production volume stuff. Like instead of like, there's people that are like commissioned artists that build beautiful works of art for a ton of money
Mm.
for fight sticks, and then there's like people like us that are kind of making slightly artisanal, cool stuff, but like on a slightly higher volume than the artistic stuff. There's like a few overseas companies now that are just mass producing as much functional stuff as they can, and they're finding some success. And then there's like bigger companies that are like slightly dipping into this space because they're starting to see the space grow and starting to want to be a part of it. Like the Razors and there's this giant parent company that owns Victrix and some of these other companies and things
Mm.
like that that are involved in that. But like our position as these small creators that are building like slightly artisanal stuff is like, I hate to say it, other creators, close your ears. It's really precarious. It's like really precarious. If one of these bigger companies, if Razer tomorrow decided that we're going to jump in to the affordable controller market, and we're going to make something slightly artisanal and cool that kind of exists in that space, it's going to be hard for us to compete with those larger companies
Hmm.
that have better resources than us and won't share their ideas with us. So that stuff I think is and honestly, the other precarious thing is like Sony and Microsoft could decide tomorrow we don't like third party controllers anymore,
Hmm.
and that would be bad, but it would be a decision that they could make, and
It's
that's
it's
a decision that we
already
could not.
it's
Yeah,
already going to be a
it
thing with
happens.
with Xbox already. Now
Yeah.
there's there.
Microsoft is already moving in that direction, and I think like a lot of people are like, well, it'd be so bad for Sony because they own Evo and all these other things. Like FGC is a small part of Sony's bottom line, and if their bottom line could go up, from banning third party controllers, of course they'd do it. And so I just want to get to a point where if I have lots of other ideas and lots of other smaller projects in different spaces, then the business can be a little bit more durable and a little less vulnerable to these bigger companies and these bigger changes happening. Because like I could invent a Trackmania controller, for example, that is moderately successful by my standards, but still way too small for like a big company to want to get involved in
Mhm.
and want to kind of swoop in and do something about it. So ideally like having lots of little things to me seems more safe than having a few bigger things that are like more vulnerable to
Yeah, like
disruption.
the ability to
Yep.
pivot real quick as you need to, whenever you need
Yep.
to,
Yep.
in that regard. And creating weird might be is definitely seems like it could definitely be the way to survive.
We'll see.
We'll see. We'll definitely see. I am interested in making sure that I have a vetted interest in seeing something weird like the camp kits exist in the world, because going back to what I said, that like maybe there's the person who wants to make their own controller one day and is like,
Yep.
oh, where do I start? You literally have the footprint, the blueprint right there with the absolute most minimal investment you can put in there
Yep.
between the box with everything with I think it's everything except the board, right?
Yep.
In the kit. So it's everything except the board. You get that. You get yourself a board, which you can find for as like low as like $5 or $6. And
Yep.
then all of a sudden, all in, you're $40 into it. And you've learned a new skill and you have something functional that you can take to your locals and show off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I have a vested interest in seeing like cool stuff like that exist and make it out in the world. So if you can go ahead and send it to like I'm trying to think who would love seeing that, making what content creator would want to do that. That'd be awesome. Or at least the larger ones, I should say. Because man, that's pretty cool being able to do that. Oh man, sir, we've been at it for quite a while. I know we're
I
not
know.
anywhere near your hard
I
out
just looked at
time.
the clock.
Yeah, I'm looking at it and like, we've only been at it for about 2.5 hours, but and I know your hard out is like 5, but I do want to get to one last thing before we get to our actual end piece is, and you kind of already mentioned it, but what does the future look like
Yeah.
for granola? What's something that you're cooking up if you're willing to talk about it?
Yeah.
What is some bigger aspirations and have you kind of like spec'd any of them out a little bit for what you want to produce as far as a product for granola? And what are
Yeah.
some ideas that you are willing to leak as far as the
So
future for granola?
I try to think pretty short term. I don't really have like a long term idea of like bigger, broader things. I think
Mhm.
like there's a lot of unexplored territory, like I said, with the same materials and concepts that I'm using, just like keyboard switches, 3D printed enclosures, and PCBs. There's a lot to do in that space. I think a lot of products that you have in your life are probably using spaces like that. And so I think like for now, um, game controllers is the primary focus. Like I said, I'd like to get into other industries and things like that, but I think game controllers and honestly like keyboards, going back to keyboards, would be a pretty logical direction to take the company, especially just because there are, there I have got a community now. There's a Discord full of nice people and like a lot of people that are kind of invested in me as a controller maker, and like I like having that community and kind of working through that. So that's kind of like the only thing that I have in terms of long term vision is to like stay the course with game controllers, but maybe branch as I can into some other stuff. But in the short term, uh like I'm a very open book. I'm not very good at hiding things from people or like waiting until there's time for a big reveal to
Mhm.
talk about what I'm working on. And so I'm just gonna like open up my projects folder here and just like list everything, I guess. But no, like so I recently I redesigned the electronics inside of the Summit. I
Mhm.
mentioned that before. There's a couple just electrical engineering things that I learned about the right ways to orient certain parts and handle certain things like ground planes and stuff like that. That like I just the current Summit works totally fine. I've not had reliability issues with it or anything like that, but I wanted to kind of update it with some updated knowledge that I have about some of that stuff. And then I'm trying to change the shape of some of the internal parts so that it's easier
Mhm.
to take it apart. That's another kind of step that I'm going to take. And so there's no timeline specifically on anything that I'm going to call out here, but like that's like something that a project that is finished now. The case design is the redesign is not finished. I have to get new PCBs in, but I would expect that in the next few weeks. I also designed a WASD summit for like with square
Nice.
keycaps and like WASD directions. That's like exactly the same internals, exactly the same everything. Just move the direction inputs to that format instead of the joystick one. And so that'll be a little bit shorter, but otherwise it'll be the same internals and everything else there. And that'll also have the new internals for slightly easier disassembly and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I also have I designed a Smash controller. I designed it.
Woo!
It's done.
Hooray!
I have to, yeah. I have to make a case for it, and there's a bunch of work that needs to get done. I also am like, box firmware is like way less user friendly than GP2040 firmware. You know, that's it seems to be, it's a smaller team. They have different goals and different ambitions, and I think honestly, like box firm, like reading the complicated stuff that goes into
Manuals.
Heybox is like, and the way that they've translated you know, digital analog inputs into digital inputs without, and made all these changes to avoid it, to try to make it as fair as possible, like changed all these inputs and everything. That is like so much more complicated than I ever thought it would be. And so I am
Yeah.
deeply impressed with the people that work on that stuff, and like I have no idea how they possibly could um you know put all that in one project. But I think you know, that may be a longer road, but like the electronics are done. I've got it all ready, and prototypes are on their way to me. So I'm hopefully going to have that out. And I'm gonna maybe leak the name here. Maybe I'll leak the name of the product here, because I'm so happy with my brilliant thinking here. So I've got the Summit, right? The
Yep.
Granola Summit, right? For platform fighters, I'm gonna call it the Granola Plateau. Plateau.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love
again,
it.
not good at hiding these things. I could do a big reveal sometime, but instead I'm just gonna leak it on this stream.
Hell
Um,
yeah. Oh my god, I love that. I love that. I love the way that sounds. Man,
spilled coffee everywhere.
that's good stuff, man. Oh man. The plateau. That's so cool. Well, you heard it here. You heard it here. That is Queen Core Glitch. Yes, he is indeed a genius. That is I love the way that sounds. That's a perfect one. I honestly can't even think of a better name for that. Hell yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I just spilled coffee everywhere.
Oh no.
Um, okay. What else? What else have I done? What else? What else? WASDA redesigned electronics. The other thing, Plateau. I think, man, I had some other. Oh yeah, of course, yeah. I want to do a. Um, this one is a little earlier in the design phases, but it should be fairly quickly out there. Is I want to make a split ergonomic controller. I want to make
Mm.
you know, something where, you know, this half of the buttons and this half of the buttons are on separate you know, units, and you can, and they're a little angled for better ergonomics, and maybe not the most not as portable or easy to transport as my other designs, but I think that's a space that I really enjoyed building keyboards that are split keyboards. That
Mm.
was something that I have done a lot of, and that is a space that I'd like to um oh, interesting.
I know Ultra Dave has been working on I think it's more of kind of like a modular design with the split
Yep.
with the split, and it has the same thing. It has the slanted on each end. You can kind of keep them together, you can pull them apart, but you can also reconfigure it so that you can have a slightly different layout
Yep.
on the left compared to the right. And I'm like, oh my god, that's amazing. I think
I think
I
I'm
think
like a little bit. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think you should hop into the Graham is it the open source project channel in the Graham? I want to say it's called the open source uh channel in Graham's Discord.
Yep.
Take some inspiration from what you see in there. Try to start to see what you could call that. Probably call it like the mountain or something.
Yeah, I don't have a name for the split controller yet. I think so on the topic of like modularity and stuff, like I am I am a victim of uh the allure of modular designs.
Yeah.
I look at a modular design, I'm like, wow, one design that does everything. I need this. I have to have it, and I have to like a lot of stuff that I'll end up buying and using is modular. And like, you know what? I buy the modular thing, and I never once change it. I never once ever once change its configuration. Never. And
As
like,
much as
I
you want
think
to.
it's a trap. It's a trap. I've decided it's a trap. I think it's the thing is like it works for a lot. It may work for a lot of people. I think for me, I'm like I always start from that perspective of like, well, what if it was modular? What if I could like change it in that way? And I am I don't know if I should end up pushing in that direction, but I'll definitely check out the open source channel. I see it now.
Yeah, there's a couple things in there where people have made some great designs. All I'm just saying is there's AV Tom or Av Tom. I don't know I don't know how you would want to say it. There's that, and then there's Bizfish. They've made some great designs with
Cool.
the with some of the stuff that Graham has in there. So go in there, trying to take some inspiration, and maybe turn one of their designs into a similar product, and talk to
Sure.
them. And I'm pretty sure they'll be willing to help you out. But just imagine all of that as a singular. Well, I don't think you'd be able to do it as a singular. You'd probably have to have it as a two piece where it's an entire housing and it's a slide off on the bottom to access everything inside. I think that would be a great design. So if you ever want to make a design that's a two piece, it's a rail system that just snaps into place. It's only and that way it's still toolless. All you gotta do is take off
Yeah.
the caps and just do a slide break, and then you can be able to remove the PCB.
Yeah. The SGF actually has a really coolest design here. Um, they have a lot more like parts in their cases, but
Mm-hmm.
like they have this sliding kind of latch system on the back here that like you kind of
Yeah.
reach under with like a screwdriver and it like unlatches it a little bit, and then I guess that's sort of toolless. Mine is also sort of toolless. I think it's easier with tools. But like you slide these pieces apart, which is a really cool redesign of the flat box. They used to just use the straight up flat box design, but they seem to have made it a little more
Mm.
efficient for both assembly and disassembly. I think it's like yeah. Speaking of multi-part cases, you reminded me also the other leak, the other
Oh, two
reveal that I'll make
leaks.
here is I in my redesign of the electronics, I am hoping that this PCB will also be usable for an art case design, a design that
Ooh.
allows you to do custom art on the front of pretty much
Ooh.
all the controllers. Requires a substantial redesign of the case and everything, but I put a couple things on the PCB itself that allows a little easier holding of the PCB, so I can do a stacked art case, acrylic art case design
Yeah.
that I'm hoping I can
Woo.
get out pretty
That's
quickly.
awesome. Dang. Dang. Two leaks in one night? Man. This investigative gotcha journalism. I didn't know I had that. I didn't know I had that as an ability. Let me try to brainstorm one more idea. Uh oh, since you said you wanted to go back into keyboards, I suggest. All right, I don't know how feasible it is, but it's going to be one thick chunky keyboard where it's going to have a dual angle, and you're going to have two case pieces. One case cover for the top and one case cover for the bottom. We'll call it the top. That's where you have your keyboard. And when you put the top cover on there, you flip it over, remove the bottom cover, and
Mhm.
boom, you have revealed your flat box design on the bottom side.
So it's interesting. Okay. I wonder if I have this.
It's a dual dual designed controller slash keyboard, and it could be like this. Oh God, I'll if I find the name of the individual, I will send you. I'll send you this guy's name, because there's a guy in the melee scene who has he uses a Guitar Hero controller that he modified as a leverless for melee. Left and right are the pick, and he has all the other miscellaneous buttons. Wave dash, which is a major out here in SoCal. He entered doubles with his girlfriend, and he took the. Have you ever seen the GameCube controller that has the keyboard in it?
Yes.
So he modified that so that the GameCube controller works as a box controller, as a flat box leverless controller, while he can also simultaneously use the actual analog controls
As player 2.
Yes, so she's sitting on his lap and they're playing doubles on the same controller.
So cute. I'll say, while I have it here, so this is an old project of mine. It needs a lot of work, but when you're talking about kind of a dual function,
Yeah.
keyboard project here, so I had this. This is like the most. This product is for me. It is for nobody else. It
The
is
most
only for
you.
me. This is like no one else would ever want to buy this. But this is something that I was like, I could use something. So actually, I'll tell the whole story. So I started using these like super minimalist split keyboards. So that's where a lot of my like split keyboard affinity kind of came from, is this idea of like I have these like super low key count sort of keyboards that are really good for like just typing, but they're bad for like gaming. And they're bad for if you want like a numpad, if you're like entering a bunch of data into a spreadsheet or something like that, if you're doing your taxes or something like that, they're bad for that. They don't do those two things. And so I wanted a device that would do those two things. And so gaming and my taxes, like the two things that I wanted it to do. So I designed this thing. And so this thing it's a numpad, right? You
Yeah.
like do your taxes, and then you turn it to the side,
Oh
and
my
it's the
God.
WASD like
Oh.
first person shooter half of your keyboard that you'd have your mouse in the other hand, and like there's a little switch on the side where you
That's
switch it, and it
so
literally switches it from
cool.
numpad to gamer mode.
That is
And it's
so
like,
cool.
I would like to productize that. That has it's not really like, it has a Pi Pico on the back here, so like that's
Yeah.
where the internals come from. But if I did the electronics on the board and made it a little more compact, I think I could actually like turn that into a granola product.
That
So
is,
that's
oh
a
my
far
God.
future idea.
That's so cool. That is so cool. Again, I don't, like you just said, I don't know who that would be for, but that is so
It's for me.
awesome
It's
for
for
you.
me.
Oh God, you know what? You know who's really into these kinds of things, like as far as like controllers and weird stuff like that, is Bob Wolf from the YouTube channel Wolf Den. He
Okay.
does like a lot of like stuff with retro emulation and trying to like how do I make a portable gaming setup in some weird way. Like one of the things that he did, he got a 3D printer and he printed an enclosure for a portable power bank that has regular outlet in it so that he could put a screen on a Xbox Series X. And it's like, I need to play on an Xbox Series X on the go. So here's a full enclosure that's all of this. He's had an affinity for leverless controllers. He's modded several kinds of controllers for leverless, and I don't know if he's done anything split, but that'd be, if you ever make that, he would definitely have I'll probably have a good time with it.
Hell yeah.
Oh my God, that's so cool. That's so cool. I'm gonna say this right now. You have some great ideas for the future. You definitely gonna have success with it. I can feel it. I can feel it in my bones. There's
Thank you.
like I said, you've put a bunch of goodwill out there. It's gonna come back to you. And it looks like the future is gonna be going bright. Again, I have an extremely vested interest in the camp kits. Like they said, if you end up getting the that new Creality printer, you can increase the volume significantly, because I think the print size or print bed on that is 350 by 350, which is almost 100 millimeters bigger than your current bed. So the 2X 2XL Summit You could start printing off of that, maybe. Start making that the plateau off of that, maybe. Or the we called it the glamp kits, and I forgot what I called it.
Yeah, I
So
don't know
you
what acronym you had there,
I
but
don't remember what it was off the top of my head, but yes, you can make glamp kits so people can make their own leverless Smash controller. I have vested interest in that because I would love to see more people be like, "Well, I got a cardboard box. Let me just get the glamp kit, and we'll be good." Oh man, Mike, thank you for being here.
yeah,
This is great conversation. I loved hearing about it. I
anytime.
loved hearing how, that the whole iterations of everything, how you got from one place to another, the the whole just deal with taking a risk and hanging out and handing things out to people and seeing that it worked very well very well for you, to the point, like you said, you were featured in the Sajam Slam, where there's a lot of eyes on that, and created something that was pretty cool. And I wish you good luck on your future endeavors. It was awesome time here.
Thanks.
I
I've been having fun. I just want to say, like, I think like you are a very personable and easygoing interviewer, and like I watched a bunch of your previous series here, and like I was like, I felt a lot. I'm not the most like out there person. I try to be as available as possible for people to like reach out to me and everything, but like just getting on here and having a long conversation is like not my usual thing that I do. And so I'm happy that you made it easy. You're very good at this sort of thing.
I tried, man. I tried. Well, that's the whole point of this series. There's an interesting story, and there's people who have interesting things to say, and not all of them are going to be the example that I use is like, not everybody, everyone's going to want to know or already knows what HBox and Mango are going to say, but no one's really going to know about the random person from Seattle that has a crazy, self-sustained business where they can make one enclosure, one PCB, and there's your entire controller. People are definitely going to know that's people
What about
are.
self-sustained? We'll working on self-sustained.
Or we'll work on
We're
the
getting there.
self-sustained part. We'll get there. Thank you very much for your time. We're gonna end this the way we end it every single way, and we're gonna do 10 rapid fire questions,
Yep.
and it's going to be about everything or about nothing. It doesn't have to be. There's going to be no what is it called? No restrictions unless you're being super out of pocket, but I have yet to have someone actually be out of pocket. So it's you ask 10 questions or I ask 10 questions and vice versa. And we're going to do this by the determination of flipping a coin. So heads or tails.
Heads.
All right. So we're going to start here. Where is it? There you go. And flip again. Did it work? No. There you go. And we got
Flipping tails.
tails. Everyone has failed their coin flip on this. It's not rigged, I swear. All right, you know what? I'll ask 10 questions first. How's that sound?
Okay,
All
you
right. Well,
got
it's
it.
not like you have a choice. You lost the coin flip.
I can hang up. That is an option.
I mean, there's that. There's that.
No, I
All
get
right.
it.
All right. So, question number one. So the joke I hear about Seattle is there's a coffee shop on every corner for every individual. What's your local coffee shop?
I live in a neighborhood now where I don't have a local coffee shop, and it's like there's like I'm holding Starbucks in my hand, which is like maybe indicative of
No.
the situation. No, I lived in Capitol Hill for about 10 years in Seattle, and that is kind of like where I would I moved out to North Seattle a little bit later, where there's a lot less stuff out here, but when I was in Capitol Hill, Analog Coffee was my local,
Ooh.
and that place is very like bare bones inside. They don't really have. It's like an espresso machine and some like IKEA tables and chairs, and like that's it. And But it's just a nice place for like I'm a long-term sitter in coffee shops. I like to kind of use them to like in a study or a meditative sense of just like sitting there and staring out the window for a long time, and it's a very good place to just stare out the window for a long time.
Nice. Um, ooh, here's one. This one goes out to, again, shout outs to Goods from the Woods. I'm stealing one of their questions they'd like to tell their guests when they have guests that are not really from town. Um, favorite thing that isn't there anymore from growing
Oh
up.
yeah. Oh yeah. Um, yeah, actually, like I have like a triple answer, I guess.
Ooh, I like
Um,
this.
also in Capitol Hill, like a half a block away from the coffee shop I just mentioned, there is this building that had a bunch of businesses in it, and the building is still there, but they're all closed now. Everything's boarded up. Presumably, they're going to knock it down and build some condos there or something like
Mm,
in the near future. But it was
capitalism,
these
I
three
swear.
places. Yeah, it was these three places right next to each other. So it's Arabica Lounge, which is a coffee shop, and
Mm.
that place was um, this weird anomaly. Like it was run by this guy from he was from, oh, what country was it? I think he was from Turkey.
Mm.
And he would he seemed like it was this weird situation where like I think he was either on the run from somebody or just like I don't like he had so I'll try to finish. Like he clearly had money, but he was very cagey about where it maybe had come from in the past. Or like he was maybe, not that it was normal to ask like, "Hey, where's your money from?" But it was very much like he would not share any kind of his background at all. I was like I spent at this place I would spend like again I spend time at coffee shops and I
Yeah.
would go there and like he was the best cook and baker I have ever met in my entire life. He would make, pastries and they would be the most wonderful pastries in the world. And they were things that like would cost about half of what anything. This is why I'm saying it's like, don't know where his money came from, but he clearly did not need money. It was this very nice interior place with this very well
Yeah.
curated, well sort of decorated space. And like, I became friends with some of the people that worked there besides the owner. The owner would just like, he'd give me one word answers to everything. And they'd be like, yeah, I don't know anything about him either. He just hired me and like, I don't know anything. Like, I don't know anything about him. And like one day it just disappeared. The entire place. And I heard it was like a tax thing. He just didn't pay his taxes at all.
Mm.
And the place just closed down. But that's Arabica Lounge on the corner. And then next door to that was a dive bar called Bus Stop, and
Ooh, that's a
that
good
was a
name.
place that was like, it's Bus Stop. It's like nominally a gay bar, but mostly it was a dive bar. It was mostly just like a place where you would go and you would sit in the dark and no one would talk to you and you would just sit there and in total silence for a long time. And like this sounds maybe less exciting to some people, but like that's heaven to me, is like a place where you could just go and like not exist but exist
Yeah.
in public. It's very very meditative sort of a place to go, and it was like very dark and like simultaneously loud and quiet. Like they'd like play loud music, but it was like quiet in that you would not hear anyone else speak, or like no one else would be trying to do anything, or like
Yeah.
nothing is catching you in the side of you're not going to like catch something interesting in the side of your peripheral vision. There's nothing interesting happening. It's just straight up like people sitting in silence, and like that is like a very meditative, cool experience to me. So it's like Arabica Lounge, Bus Stop, and then the third place is In the Bowl, which was a Thai food restaurant that was, they were
Ooh.
vegan, but they didn't tell anyone. It was so good that you'd go and the menu would say, "Do you want duck or chicken or beef or whatever?" You'd order it, and it would all taste exactly like whatever meat you had ordered, but it was like secretly vegetarian, and it was like a place that like they wouldn't. You had to like find out from other people that it was a
That was a vegan
vegetarian place. It
spot.
was like
Yeah.
so amazing. They had like signs on the wall. It was one of the places where like there's signs on the wall that say like, "You want 5 stars spiciness? Your 5 stars are not the same as our 5 stars. Just be careful." Like, like
One of
we're
those.
we're,
One of
we're like the real
those.
5 star place.
Yeah.
And it was true. It was like, you ordered spicy food and it was like, you'd be miserable for a day, but it was like incredible, incredible food. Again, like really affordable. And it was an institution that had been there for like 20 years and closed down a few
So
years
sad.
ago, along with the rest of the places in that building. And I think there was like a tattoo shop and some other stuff there, but it was like those three places were all like so important to my life for like such a long time that it's this weird, like I see that block and I'm like, oh, I have like 17 different memories here of this like space. It wasn't just like one space. It was like this whole kind
The
of like
whole,
half of
yeah.
a building.
Oof, man. Yeah, that's a good answer because it's also very sad. All right. I'm gonna ask a question I asked Graham. Um, if you were to collaborate with any person or company that isn't directly related to FGC to create either a product of theirs or whatever, any type of collaborative product,
Yeah.
what company would it be? A dream collaboration company.
Yeah, it's funny because like I don't like collaboration. I'm in this, I think I'm in this business by myself, and I would like to reach a point where I'm, it might be cool to like have business partners and people that I'm working with from that perspective to like, have different skills involved in the work that I do and have people that have different skills accomplish things that I can't necessarily accomplish as easily and to do that in a way that like would be really cool. I think my dream collaboration would be like hiring all my friends away from their shitty jobs. But like I like as far as like taking a brand or an idea or something that like already exists out there and collaborating with them, I think like ideally it would be something that has no crossover with what I'm doing. So like I mentioned like Trackmania, for example. It's like
Mm.
if the company that makes Trackmania was like, we want to make an officially licensed branded Trackmania controller, you have complete creative freedom to do whatever you want with it, and we will use it to, we'll promote it in that way, and also like we'll give you feedback from highly skilled Trackmania players about what you might want to incorporate into something like that. If I can have that sort of relationship with somebody, like that would be the ideal for me. But like co-designing a controller or whatever is, or like, or any kind of product is like, I think it's like poison to me. Or like it sounds like, I don't know. I'm being like a little hyperbolic, but it's like I
I
don't know.
like that.
I don't really have the like reverence for I think that there's definitely like people, there's designers and things that I admire, but like it's straight up, it's admiration. It's not like I wish I could work with them. I wish that
Yeah.
like they would make stuff for me and give it to me. Like that would be cool.
Oh, that's a good one. The Trackmania officially licensed
Or
Trackmania
like
brought to you by Canola.
any like representative of, the space or the product space that I would
Yeah.
want to get in, like involved in.
That'd be pretty fun. That'd be pretty funny to find that out. All right. Um. Okay. Let's see where we can go from here. Oh, who who's been your most recent YouTube obsession or your most obsessive show that you've been intaking?
Good question. I want to look into my past a little bit here. Um, I mean, like, oh, it's really all over the place. So, I think this is a little bit of a boring answer because it's so related to granola and everything that I kind of do here, but like all of my good ideas for 3D printing cases and enclosures and things like that have
Mm-hmm.
come from this company Slant 3D. They
Mm.
are like they operate a big print farm. They do on-demand 3D printing services, but they also make and like you can contract them to print stuff for you. But they have like this YouTube channel, Slant 3D, where they specifically cover designing for what they call mass production 3D printing,
Mm.
which is I have found a very, very different set of goals and ideas than hobbyist 3D printing. I'm not in a position where I'm doing like mass production. I'm not producing tens of thousands of anything, but
Mm.
it's still like the ideas about the things that they uh emphasize are like how to design parts that are reliable and like not just reliable but like work on any like they're less dependent on tuning the printer properly, that are like they're going to
Mm-hmm.
work in a wider variety of situations because they only have one they have like one 3D printer, but they have tens of thousands of them, and they're all in different states of repair. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like some of them are on their, you know, 50,000th hour, and they're totally worn down and all the stuff is loose. And then they have like brand new ones, and they have to design products where it's going to print out exactly the same on both of those printers. And so I think a lot of the fundamentals and ideas that they put together are just like super useful, and like they talk a lot about the industry stuff that like I have kind of gotten sucked into a little bit. Like I don't actually really care how you know, the Invisalign Corporation is doing with their, but like I didn't know that they use 3D printing for their braces and stuff like that. But
Yeah,
like that's like apparently a big industry within 3D printing. But like
yeah.
I've kind of gotten sucked into that, and it's that's a channel that I just leave on in the background a lot.
Mm.
And it feels boring because it's like not, you know, it's like related to the work that I'm doing. I'm really not like a workaholic type of a guy. I want to, you know, I put time and effort into this project and everything, but I'm not like someone who's like up every night, you know, reading like better business tips or that kind of thing or something like
Well,
that. But
you're
like
well, you're
I
you're
do
not in
find
the red pill rabbit holes for your Sigma grind set. What?
hustle. I'm hustling. No, not really. I, you know, it's weird. I've like surrounded myself with people in that world, but it's, you know, at various points in my life, but it's never been a important thing for me. But that's the first thing that came to mind.
All right. Um. Oh, I probably should have asked this during the main portion of this, but give us the abridged reason why you landed on the printer that you landed on.
Oh, I started with a Prusa Mark III. Um, it had some problems.
Hmm.
I well, it mostly worked, but it was something that I think worked really well for hobby purposes and things like that. And then when the bamboo printers got announced, I was like, "What's the big deal? It's just faster." And then I actually looked at the calculation of how much faster it was, and I was like, "Oh, if I bought two of these, I could like make a self-sustaining business."
Yeah.
I'm up to four now, but it's uh, like four of them is the equivalent of like 20 Prusa Mark threes, and this is before the Mark IV got announced.
Yeah.
You know, where it's like it's just so much faster, and it turned out to be way more reliable and useful in that way too. So I don't know. Again, like I think my goal is to actually like take the printer out of it as much as I possibly can. I do the basic maintenance of everything with my printers, but it's like I think that like the hobby in general is like way too focused on, you know, like tuning and getting everything just right and making everything like and I think like that's cool, but it's like really cool for hobbyists. It's really
Hmm.
cool for people that want to make that into the work that they do. But like for me, it's like it's a tool to get the job done, and like the bamboo is the right one for just getting the job done. And I think there might even be better printers out there, but like I don't want to invest the time thinking about it. Like,
It's because it's the one that worked and
yeah,
the one that worked for what you needed it to. Yeah.
exactly.
It's like they say, what's the best controller? The one that you can use.
Yep.
Side note, have you looked into that new Creality one?
Yeah, I mean, I think I wish I could like I want to like pivot here and show you like I have like a shelf. These are my printers.
Hey, there they are.
Yep. The shelf is like I cannot pull the printer out without taking the shelf apart. It's that full. So like I need a new workspace before I
Think
buy
about
any kind
the
of new equipment.
That's cool. That's cool. All right. All right. Question number 6. If you had to have a somewhere that you would have to try to live there for let's say for 3 months without knowing the language, what country would you move to?
Does it have to be one that doesn't speak my language?
Exact has to be where they do not speak, where the first
Yeah.
language is not English.
Honestly, it's got to be China. I think like China is just so there's so much happening there. It's so interesting, and like there's just so much like I think uh uh there are so many things that like being there would enable me to do that I think it just sounds like a place that I'd like to be. You know, I think the time frame is interesting because I think it's like if nothing changed like between now and then, that sounds great. But or like it's okay if uh there's a military conflict in Taiwan or something like that. Like that would be very different, right? Like, and I don't think that that'll happen in the next 3 months, but like I don't know. I'm not like an expert in that sort of thing, so I think there are certainly like challenges with something like that, but I think like uh um uh you know uh China would definitely be like the place where the most opportunities would exist. And I don't know, Brazil sounds cool.
Yeah, Brazil mentioned. And not just for Carnival. All right. Yeah, that's a pretty cool answer. They do got the high speed rail everywhere, so at least
Yeah.
there's that. All right. All right. Question number 7. Ooh. What's your go-to item to bring for a Thanksgiving?
Ooh, Thanksgiving. Ooh, I think like it's been a long time since I've had a traditional Thanksgiving. And
Or what would be your go-to?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm mostly just thinking like what are I make like a really good it's called nasi goreng. It's like a rice dish
Mm,
that's like kind of a sort of a fish sauce and rice and like
ooh,
eggs and all the good stuff you want, the
ooh.
shallots. But like I think like anything like that I think would be honestly like a big pizza. I know that's like a weird, I don't know. There's
Yeah.
so many things that people like associate with Thanksgiving that like I just don't. I don't know. Like I'm not. Traditions they have value. I think like almost every big holiday in especially in the United States is like it's like there's a core of something there that I think is valuable, and it's surrounded by just like the
A
most
giant,
evil thing you could ever imagine.
a thick crust of
Um,
capitalism.
I mean, like capitalism for sure, but even just like the historical like
Uh,
connections to these things are
yeah.
just like like now are we still on this now? Like I I don't know. Like uh uh there's an attempt to change the perspective of a lot of these things. We've
Hmm.
got Columbus Day and we switch it to Indigenous Peoples Day. And like we need an Indigenous Peoples Day. But it doesn't
Hmm.
have to be on Columbus Day. Does it have to be do we even have to keep the core of like what we're talking about here? Like do we have to
Yeah.
like
Want to know
even
why? Because
yeah.
we're going to beat up Columbus Day and take his lunch money and get them out of here, and then we're the new guy in charge.
I
That's the whole
agree.
reason.
I just like I agree. It's just sort of like, do we have to even keep the kernel of the past here? Can we just like
Yeah.
obliterate, whatever was there that's not good? So Thanksgiving, I think like I like the idea of like let's celebrate what like I almost don't even want to say family because family itself is something that's so messed up.
Yeah.
But like community or like your chosen family or the people that like surround
Yeah.
you that you care about, like that's worth uh um celebrating. But
Celebrating.
like
Yeah.
and having a big meal together. And like what better meal than pizza?
Hell yeah. But remember though, remember the actual phrase, the actual saying. They say blood is thicker than water, and that's not the right quote. The real quote is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. So the family you choose is sometimes more important than the family that's just bestowed upon you. So
Interesting.
yeah. That's the
I'll have to remember that one.
yeah. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. That's a I love busting that one out. Okay. Ooh. Question number 8. What can we do with this one? Because we're winding down all of a sudden. All right. Question number 8. Oh. Uh. Do you have a go-to recommendation for keyboards or where to start
Mm,
with the keyboard? And if so, what is
mm.
that go-to recommendation?
Um, it's like no, I don't. I mean, it's funny. It's like first of all, there really aren't. There's a few like brands and things you can just buy that are totally fine out of the gate.
like
But like
like Royal
honestly, like
Kludge and stuff like that.
Yeah, like I just think like I probably shouldn't say this as a controller guy and as a keyboard guy and like all these other sort of, but like my eyes glaze over so fast when people start talking about different switches and the different, preferences that they have for like linear and clicky and all this other stuff. And like honestly, I get the differences and I want to like give people the options that they need to like get what their preferences are. But I think ultimately it's like everyone's preference is going to be different, and 99% of people don't know their own preferences. Like
Yeah.
most people will like try something and then find out over like a long period of time that they actually don't like that thing. And so I think there's a lot of stuff about keyboards that like the thing that got me sort of interested in it to begin with is more just thinking about like how um, the original layout of keyboards and the way that keyboards are structured today is like nonsensical on purpose. It was designed for typewriters, where
Hmm.
if you type too fast on the old typewriters, they would actually jam. And so they actually built these things purposefully to slow you down as much as possible.
Hmm.
And that's like why the QWERTY layout exists. That's why
Mm.
another reason why like the keys on your keyboard are like staggered is so there's room for the mechanical
Oh,
connections to
arms
be
to
made across the way.
literally, right?
Yeah, and so like that's why all these decisions were made, and we've kind of just stuck with it for a long time. And I was just kind of interested in exploring alternatives to that. And like I'm back to using a standard keyboard. I think it was just too much. It's not too much work to learn it, but it's too much work to like. I had a 9 to 5 job that I was going to, and like just using a different keyboard all day long, and like just switching back and
Mm.
forth was not good for my brain. And so like I think it's something that like if you're interested in, you'll find your own investment into it. There's no way I can tell you, here, try this and you'll like it. Because I think it's like you should try the control, like the keyboard you're using. You'll like that one. I think in general, Kale box switches are like a little cheaper than like Cherry MX switches, and they seem to be a little higher quality for like the full size keys.
Mm.
But other than that, I really can't recommend anything in particular. I think if you want to learn how to build keyboards, that's a different thing. Joe Scotto, the YouTube channel, is a really, really good resource for making custom keyboards, and he works mostly on hand wired boards, which is something
Mm.
that like you don't have to get knowledge of how to design PCBs or anything like that to put it together.
All right. Ooh, looks like we got a starting point anyway. Got a starting point out of you anyway. All right, I got two more questions. Question number 9. Ooh, what can I do about this one? Hmm. My chair keeps slipping. What the heck? It keeps just boop, the hydraulic is like wearing out. I've had this chair for like 4 years. I gotta get a new one. Hmm. If if you had the ability to create the weirdest crossover fighting game in the
You stole my question. That was going to be my questions. I'm going to ask you this one.
all
Get
right,
ready.
all right. If you had the chance to have the weirdest crossover fighting game, not necessarily in the vein of Smash Brothers, in that it's a platform fighter, but in that it is that level of diversity.
Yeah.
Who would be the let's say 5 characters on the box art to get people in?
Okay, so it's the
It's a traditional
it's
fighting
the
game if you want to have it that way. But what are the
yeah.
5 characters on the cover art to let you know this is a crossover fighting game?
This is the well, okay, does it have to be a crossover? Okay, I'm ignoring. This is the Werner Herzog's filmography fighting game, right? We've got we've got Fitzcarraldo, right? We've that as Klaus Kinski Fitzcarraldo. We've got Klaus Kinski Nosferatu. We've got Klaus Kinski as Agir from Agir the Wrath of God. We've got Klaus Kinski from Wojciech, and we've got Klaus Kinski from Cobra Verde. All 5 are completely different characters that are doing the like clash of the superheroes.
That is That
mindset
is
there.
that is an amazing crossover fighting game right there. I love it.
You've got Timothy Treadwell from Grizzly Man in there. You've got that Christian Bale from that horrible Rescue Dawn movie. You've got Nick Cage from Bad Lieutenant Protocol New Orleans. The gang's all here, but mostly it's the five Klaus Kinskis.
Yo, that is a better answer than I thought I was gonna hear. That's awesome. I love it. I love it. All right. And finally, I think you've already said this piece of advice, but I want to hear it. What's your piece of advice for someone who wants to make controllers?
Oh, make controllers. I actually haven't talked about this. I think the thing to keep in mind, or the thing that makes this hobby so cool, is you don't have to learn everything all at once. You can learn everything in these little tiny steps, and you make a tiny step and you can build a whole controller. And then you can make another tiny step and build a whole controller out of that. You don't have to learn all the skills together. So like a one route you could take, right, is you could start with a hand wired board. It could be made out of a cardboard box. It could be anything, right? You learn maybe some soldering. There's even ways to do it without soldering. There's cables and things you can with screw down terminals and ways to basically build it without any soldering necessary. Or you could learn to solder, and like that would be a way to get started and build a hand wired board. Then you could be like, well, I want to make something more compact. I don't want this mess of wires everywhere. I'm going to design my own PCB. Well, you can design a PCB that's, I showed this one a second ago, where you don't have to know all the fancy electronic stuff, because you can just solder a Pi Pico or some other board directly onto your PCB. And the goal of the PCB is just to make routing down from, to each of your different buttons. And like you set up the button layout on the PCB, and that'll teach you kind of a little bit of electronics design and a little bit of like how to order that stuff off of manufacturer, websites, and how to kind of work without any kind of complicated assembly. And then, once you're comfortable with that, you can keep going and move on to, actually getting the electronic pieces, each individual piece routed out. And there's tons of resources online for how to do stuff like that. And like get the assembly done at the factory and all that stuff. And like you can learn one step at a time until you're at a point where you can, build a whole controller end to end. And like all the, designing of cases and everything else, you can start with the flat box, for example, and just make a flat box, or you can start designing your own stuff. And like all that is a step by step process of like building up your skill set. And like you don't have to think in the mindset of like, how would I turn this into a business, because you're not turning it into a business. You can just make stuff that you like, and
make it.
Yeah, and that you probably, if you do want to start a business, you probably do need to get to a point where you are designing everything end to end. Even then you can make mistakes and come out with different products and iterate on them. But like I think the thing that you really want to keep in mind is like the only reason to, for example, design your own electronics here instead of just soldering a Pi Pico to the board here is because maybe you want to make 100 of them. And it's not easy to solder this on 100 times, or it just takes extra time. And so like there and even like successful businesses that are doing this, Mavericade, for example, as far as I know, they're just entirely they take a Pi Pico or they take a Waveshare RP2040 board and they just solder it onto their PCB designs. And so like you don't always have to learn all that stuff. It's just like you can learn it one step at a time. And there's tons and tons of like very helpful people, like in the OpenStick community Discord, or in the Graham Discord, or in my Discord. Like there's all these different places that you can kind of get resources for building whatever you want.
Man, so what I'm hearing is just do it. just do it and learn it. Yeah, I think that's great advice. That's actually great.
All the software is free too. Don't pay for anything.
Yeah, exactly. Pain is for suckers. I think that was my 10 questions, man. I think I asked my 10 questions, if my math was correct. So, sir, go ahead. Ask 10 questions.
So I knew this was coming. And the idea of like, there's something like, I'm okay at like coming up with stuff on the fly.
Yeah.
But if you like come to me with like ask me 10 questions. The idea that like come up with 10 things out of nowhere is like so scary to me. So I'm just saying I wrote mine in advance. I'm sorry. I knew this was coming. So you are a self-described tinkerer, and you've built a number of like controller projects. Are there
Yeah.
any like non-controller projects that you're interested in, or you've already built, or like that you want to kind of see if you can pursue?
I don't know about pursue. I don't know about pursue, but this table right here and the table my PC is on, I actually made this. I made these
Oh
tables.
hell yeah.
I took some project board, got some 2x4. I got a yeah, someone came prepared. Um I got some project board and I was able to create an L desk layout right here because the desks that we had were actually not as good as a layout that I thought it was going to be, even though it was an L
Mhm.
shape. So I just decided I was going to make my own set of tables, and I made
Cool.
tables for my fiance. She has her workspace, just off screen over there, and it originally started with us getting a butcher block countertop, and the first thing we did with that was we took pieces of 2x4, make sure it was properly leveled, and drilled like probably about, I want to say it was maybe about 4 inches wide of some leftover 2x4 that we had. I sanded it
Mhm.
down and drilled it directly into the studs, and that was the back retaining support, and the front retaining support were these cube cube storage units from like IKEA, and then that evolved it to it having like actual legs, and then giving her a giant 6 foot table that she are two 6 feet tables and putting them together so it's one L desk. So yeah, that's one of the my more recent things I've done. I've redid the
Awesome.
floors in this room. I used to have carpet. I ripped it all out, put hardwood in there, or not hardwood, laminate flooring. I need to redo some of the laminate flooring because some of the tiles are popping out. Um, I've replaced toilets. I've replaced toilets. Um, yeah, so as far as like tinkery things, a lot of it's just I guess I'm technically handy. I don't know.
Hell yeah.
And then
Cool.
it
You
turned
mentioned, I
into
think you mentioned maybe a belt. Is that something that
yes.
you
So
wanted to talk about?
I've learned it turns out I was doing everything right except for clicking one button, and I have an STL for a very simple um front plate for a championship belt
Cool.
that I want to 3D print so that I can use it for either a prop or to sell to like local to my locals so they can have a championship belt for their
Nice.
monthlies. Uh,
You gonna cut promos too? That'd
oh,
be cool.
trust me, like I
Got the
didn't
belt down
realize
here, like,
I'm like, listen here, brother. Now,
"Listen, brother,
now I didn't know this and I didn't realize it, but my
Jesse might think he's the champ. I'm the champ."
actually, yeah, I've actually I did cut a promo a long time ago where it was me and this guy Doc Brown Bear. Shout out to him. We were supposed to do a crew battle in a Discord that we were a part of for a podcast because I threw a online Smash tournament because this was like in the throes of COVID COVID lockdown. Um, and I said we're going to do a crew battle. It's going to be me against him and his crew, and that never materialized. But I did still cut the promo. Uh, um, yeah. So once I get the side pieces done, I'm probably just going to take some simple fabric and encase them with either another plate of some sort or maybe just cardboard because it's really just a prop
Yeah.
for silliness sake to make one of those. Yeah, I will. And
Cool.
the thing I was going to say, my fiance told me, hey, after realizing you talking about random things and how they're related to wrestling, I realized I think you're just a wrestling character. I'm like, yeah, I am, aren't
I think when
I?
people notice that sort of thing about you, you gotta lean in. You gotta be
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Just double down, triple down, quadruple down.
"Cool.
All right.
Okay. Okay, so I have seen you almost exclusively covering like FGC and Smash
Hmm.
related stuff. Are there any other like worlds of gaming that you're interested in, or like do you feel like there's enough stories to tell here, or would you
Hmm.
like to branch out into other parts of like gaming or really anything else?
So, the kind of like original mission statement about this was to kind of talk to people within the Smash scene and FGC, and let those stories be told that aren't the larger stories that most people are going to know about, right? Especially like at a on a local level. And I think while there are so many stories in Smash and FGC, um that are out there to tell, eventually there will be someone where I'll be like, yo, yeah, we did go to a Yu-Gi-Oh local. So like
Hmm.
maybe I'll find like a local Yu-Gi-Oh guy that like they have a an interesting project or an interesting story, and like, yo, let me have a full conversation. We actually talked to a guy at this local where he'd been playing for almost 20 years, basically not day 1, but like day 2 essentially.
Yeah.
Um and dude was from Colombia, and like he came here and and he found Yu-Gi-Oh and left for a bit and came back to it. The guy that's a super interesting story. So like, yeah, there are different places I'll go to and figure it out, whether it be TCG, other gaming communities. What they are yet, I don't know. I gotta. I'll find them along the way. that's
Yeah. You
that's
don't
the
have
long
to
and
know.
short of
That's
it.
okay.
I'll find them
Cool.
along the way.
Very cool. What's this next one here? Oh, do you think so? This is just a general question. So, like, I think
Hmm.
you seem like someone that is very like, you like the DIY energy of the
Hmm.
FGC. Like, maybe that's a broad statement, but I think that's something that you
Hmm.
seem to value, right? Like,
Yep.
and I think you value, like, the smaller communities and the groups like that. And,
Hmm.
I guess I'm wondering, like, do you think that the FGC can grow, but, like, keep that energy somehow? Is that possible, or is it something that, like, they're gonna have to sort of leave behind as it gets bigger?
No, it's 100% possible. You look at um the better way to say it, it is the FGC and in Smash and all these areas are, this is just the tribe we've chosen, and it comes from DIY ethics, and it comes from
Mhm.
these areas like, and I put it akin to, you know, at a certain point, yes, it's just it's no longer, it no longer pays its respects to the roots of it. At one point, it will just happen because inherently, we live in a capitalist society, and everything moves to that way, as the more um we kind of just keep existing in this current form of the economy. No matter what it is, whether it be small form, whatever, it get cannibalized, whatever. But that's neither here nor there. If you look at, you know, a lot of, underground movements, no matter how large they are, they always pay homage and respects to the humble beginnings of where they come from. Everyone may not know that history. They may not know, all the names, and there's hundreds of people who are nameless that don't have the recognition as the bigger parts of that history, but they were still just as important, right? As long as a community, there is a conscious effort to pay those respects and understand those roots, and pay homage to the ideas behind what that is, it can grow as large as it can be with almost no cap, as long as we don't betray that those values, right? So
Sure.
again, if you look at, metal, you look at punk, you look at any DIY music scene, you will have those mega festivals where it's like hundreds of dollars to travel there, and then hundreds of dollars for the ticket, but it still holds um that spirit in a way that hasn't fully betrayed it. There's no way to really actually betray that if that's what you believe deep in your core and you abide by that. So no, there's almost no limits to how big this can grow, unless like you said, morally corrupt decisions are made for the advancement for capitalist reasons rather than the better of the community. Then that's a whole separate problem.
That would never happen.
No, there's not a current discourse about moving a possible Evo to or anything like that. Nah, I don't know what you're talking about.
Cool. Okay, lighter question. Here's the question that I promise I wrote this down in advance. But I was going to ask what is your dream, or what would be a good like mashup game like Marvel versus Capcom, but like blank thing versus other thing. What fighting game would you like to create that's like this franchise versus this franchise,
I
or
think
this group versus this group?
I think a good kind of like in the vein of how you answered, I think a great way to do this and incorporate wrestling, I think, because that's the best way to do it, is it's an actual fighting game. And it'll probably use Tekken mechanics or something, but it would be lucha versus wrestling.
Oh yeah.
So you can choose all the different eras of wrestling, Golden Age, Silver Age, Attitude Era, the squeaky clean takeover, and returning back to form now that Vince McMahon is gone. All of that of WWE and WCW, all of those wrestling companies versus the entirety and history of lucha. So seeing and exposing people to, El Santo, Mil Máscaras, Blue Demon, and the older generations of the Guerrero family, the older generations of Mysterio, and everything in between, maybe not incorporate Los Minis, because I don't think American wrestling has little people wrestlers held to the same regard as they do in Mexico. Maybe one or two as like an assist or something that you can choose, but something like that. I think that would be a great game to see.
Sure.
Yeah.
Doesn't even have to be a Tekken, it can be a wrestling game. It'd be a good wrestling game.
I mean, it'd be great, but like I'm thinking like the way I would want to see, yes, like you got your WWE 2K style, or you can end up like apparently AEW has a horrible game.
Oh yeah.
Oh, have the minis be the ice climbers.
There's no shortage of horrible wrestling games. Don't
my brother Larry Lemon's in the chat. Yeah. The minis can be ice climbers. Oh man, or the idols, if you remember the icons, if you remember that game. But yeah, I think that would be the best way to put it, like that. Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. Okay. The next one I have here just says, explain straight edge to me. So no, I think this is I'm just kind of curious, like, you can answer this on the personal level or on the broader, like, the movement level. But I think like you're the only gaming content creator that I know that has like associated themselves with like the straight edge movement. And I only have like the most very basic low level understanding of like, I'm aware that I know what minor threat is, I know, like maybe just like explain like I'm five, like either your personal connection to it or the broader connection to it, or like whatever you want to talk about with regard to straight edge or like drug free or like any of that stuff. I think is something that I was just sort of curious about poking you on.
Yeah, I think so for the easiest like way to say what being straight edge is. It's literally you are someone who doesn't drink or do drugs. That's
Yep.
the most broadest form of it, right? You can
Yep.
take it to the most extreme, and you could be like, oh God, what's the name of that band? Not Youth of Today. Um, you can be like Vegan Reich, where they take the non self harm to the next level, and it's like, well, if we're not gonna commit harm to ourselves, we're not gonna commit harm to others, and we're gonna become vegans, right? You can take it that far, but the initial idea is not to commit self harm in a way like you could still be a complete degenerate and not be smoking and drinking. Trust me, that's who I was in high school.
Uh-huh.
Right. So that's just the kind of like surface level of it. The other thing behind it is um just like doing drugs or anything, just it wasn't appealing to me at all.
Mhm.
Maybe Dare worked. I don't know. I wore my Dare shirt all throughout high school, and people thought it was like a joke because I looked the way that I looked. But like, no, I don't do drugs.
Mhm.
And it was strange for people to find out that I didn't I didn't like do drugs, and I wasn't like actively hiding like drug use or anything so much to the point that that's just what people knew me as in high school. They just knew me as straight edge, and I was the only guy that wasn't a complete asshole about it.
Mhm.
Because there's multiple ways it can go, where there's the term was called be posi, POSI, where it's just like, oh, you just got to keep a positive mentality about it, and you can have people just know, and if they're interested in about it, and then they'll take that positive energy from you, and then they'll also be straight edge if they want to be, right? Which like that's one way to put it, right? The other part is like being hardline, where like I said, you can take that to the next extreme, and also like but you almost climb into a weird way where you start becoming a weird right wing person. Where,
What, in punk? No way.
no, man, there's no such
Come on.
thing. There's no such thing as right wing punk. Screwdriver doesn't exist. Combat 84 doesn't exist. Um, yeah, no, that I wasn't really about that. I was too chill. And just people asked me about it, and it was honest, like, yeah, man, I don't do drugs. That's just how it is.
Mhm.
Um, I was aware there was a term for it, and I was like, well, this is what it is, and this is who I am, but it's not really who I am. Yeah, that's ultimately where it is.
Got it. Cool. Yeah, thank you. Do you have a favorite like this is way lighter tone.
Hell yeah.
Do you have a favorite like esports rivalry, or even like I guess you could bring wrestling in
Ooh,
too. Like, do you have a favorite like rivalry?
man. Um, there's a couple heartbreaking stories in Smash Brothers. If we wanted to keep it that way, the fact that Spargo is not considered number one. So Spargo is a kid from Tijuana. I think he just turned 18 this year. When he exploded onto the scene locally, he was like 12 years old.
Wow.
11 or 12, playing Smash 4. Oh, actually, you know what? My brother said it right now. I forget what I was going to say. Kendrick versus Drake.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's on the tip of everyone's tongue lately. I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah. I've literally had multiple hour discussions with a lot of different people about it at work. Not to my
starting to feel less
coworkers.
like a rivalry and more like a murder. But
Yeah, like I new levels of it's so over, so Jover for Drake keep dropping. And I thought it
yeah.
was like, yo, he released the music video on 4th of July to call a Canadian a colonizer, right? I thought it was gonna get there. No. Then the file released for it so you can play Not Like Us on Clone Hero. which if you're not aware is a Guitar Hero mod, open source
Yep.
that people play. I thought that it was that, but then oh god, what was the other one that literally just dropped? Oh, it was something so crazy. It's slipping me. It's slipping my mind right now. Somewhere in between, because of the confidence that he had, Pharrell Williams took allusion to Kendrick being on his side and saying "fuck Drake," and now that's part of the main theme song for Minions 4, or the not Minions,
Despicable Me.
Despicable Me 4.
I'm a big Minions head, by the way. Like,
Yeah. So just know there's a couple lines dedicated to the Despicable Me, that's saying, yeah, I was talking shit about Drake, and thanks to Kendrick, I put it out there. That is a good one. But if we're gonna keep it to real esports, definitely Spargo not being number one. That's a tragedy, especially because I think he's like 9-0 on the number one ultimate player right now. And the fact that he's not number one, that's a
but who's
tragedy.
the? I guess, is there a rivalry there? Is it him versus everyone? Or
It to
or
me,
like,
it's the rivalry is between his record and
I
Luma
see.
Rank.
I see. It's
That's who the rivalry is.
I see. The facts
That
versus the narrative, or the
exactly. That's and
okay.
you want to know at the end of the day, I think I think facts versus narrative is still the greatest rivalry of all time, because you look at Kendrick, he opened up Euphoria like, don't spread lies about me, or and I won't tell the truth about you. So yeah, facts versus narrative. That's the true
Okay.
greatest esports
That's a good answer.
rivalry. Oh, and
Okay.
if I want to do one more wrestling, the greatest storyline that hurt me so much in wrestling was Eddie Guerrero being the father of Dominic in and not Rey Mysterio. That's a heartbreaking story.
Mhm.
Um, just because Eddie Guerrero was one of the first like big representations of Latino culture that mainstream America like fully embraced. Right, we were getting semblances of that with Selena before she was murdered. There's a little bit of that with Ricky Martin and Mark Anthony. Um, but people had massive fandoms and being rabid fans of like wrestling with like Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio, and them being pitted against each other. That storyline was just it still haunts me to this day. So much so that I asked the guy from Goods from the Woods, his name's Rivers Langley, hey man, this is what I know so far. What can you tell me about Dominic? And he gave me a quick rundown about it. Which, if you don't know, his son is now wrestling for the WWE. And
Cool.
yeah. So there you go.
Cool.
Extra answer.
Is there a food?
Hmm.
Well, so what food would you, if you could make it good for you, if you could make it, I hesitate to say healthy, but if you could turn it into a high nutrition density sort of a food that you could
Hmm.
eat more often, what food would you pick?
Mm. Pizza is a really good answer. That's always the I feel like between pizza and burgers are the number one and two answer interchangeably. Um, but I think it's a very specific flavor profile, I will say. A very, very specific flavor profile. I am going to say Chinese food, but specifically from the San Fernando Valley.
Mm,
Uh, I live about an hour north of here, of the San Fernando Valley in LA, probably about an hour and a half, depending on what part of LA you're coming from. And we drive down regularly, about 45 minutes to an hour, to go to our favorite Chinese food spots. So if we can get that exact flavor profiles as better for you, it's specifically Valley Chinese.
hell yeah, cool. Yeah, I think yeah, like American Chinese food is so good.
Oh,
It'd be
dude.
so good.
Uh, uh, was it? It's East Coast Chinese food is different than West Coast Chinese food. West Coast Chinese food is closer to what food actually is like in China, from my understanding.
Mhm.
So San Francisco, the best Chinese food restaurants out there are literally because they're made from. I mean, a lot of restaurants do have Chinese immigrants and everything, but like a lot of the cooking traditions are closer to what you would see overseas from there.
Yeah.
And while a lot of American Chinese food is made with American sentiments in mind and American flavors in mind, East Coast is more Americanized compared to West Coast.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not an expert, but I think a lot of it is also like, there are traditional dishes that are like put on the same plate that wouldn't normally be put on the same plate, or like,
Mm,
like things that are kind of mixed together that wouldn't normally be mixed together.
yeah, yeah.
But that's my very very limited understanding. But good answer. Okay, do you have a favorite urban legend or conspiracy theory or something that is like, it can be local, it can be national, it could be international, but like
Ooh,
anything that like catches your fancy?
I don't know if this counts because it's a thing that actually exists. It's just
A lot
that
of conspiracy theories are
my
things
I
that
know I
actually
was
exist.
well the pro well the before I get into it, people
Yeah,
say the craziest things about the government are not the conspiracies, is the things that they've admitted to.
sure.
Like people used to think ice bullets were a conspiracy theory, and then I think because they became declassified, the government was working on poison bullets,
Mhm.
and they had fully working prototypes and everything. Like there was that. Again, the crazier stories that sound like conspiracies are the things that the U.S. has admitted to. um, but the thing that I was going to say is, I don't know if it's just because they actively chose to not look into it anymore. But uh, have you ever heard of the mummies of Guanajuato?
Nope.
So the mummies of Guanajuato are a phenomenon that takes place in Guanajuato, Mexico, which is kind of like on the lower central Mexico. And this area of Mexico, I don't know what it is about the makeup of the actual soil itself, but it preserves bodies to the point where it looks like mummification.
Uh-huh.
And like they have the bodies on full display.
Somebody's knocking on my door.
Yeah.
Hang on a second. I know. My wife is home.
Hey.
I'm here.
All right. So we're about to wrap up, so it's fine. So the bodies are preserved as close to mummification as possible, but it preserves within about a year or so. So
Mhm.
the makeup of the soil is so like either putrid or rancid or I don't know.
Yeah.
But they as far as I know, they gave up on trying to explain why the chemical makeup of the soil is mummifying, preserving these bodies. And
I like those, just like, we don't know.
yeah,
We don't know.
they looked into it and they kind of gave up.
Okay.
Like if you ever go to this part of Mexico and to see them, they have all these bodies displayed that are fully preserved. Like there's a woman that drowned who was pregnant, and they
Mhm.
buried her body, and then when they exhumed it, the child, the unborn child, was fully preserved.
Oh,
So they
no.
have on display this woman whose stomach is inflated from because she didn't get a chance to give birth, and the perfectly preserved fetus body baby, fully
Yeah.
preserved
I don't know if
unborn,
that should be on
never born.
display.
Yeah, full on full
It's
display.
interesting, but it's like,
Yeah.
okay. Wow.
So
That's a
yeah,
good one.
that's a good one. It's not, again, it's real. It fully exists.
Yeah.
The conspiracy is, why are they not looking into it to fully understand why, to get the answers?
Cool. Okay, I think this is number 9.
All right.
Um, who so you are focused on telling the unseen stories, so maybe this is not a good question for you, but, like,
Mm-hmm.
do you have, like, a dream interview? Do you have, like, a person you wish you could, or, you that would be really cool to, like, get an audience with, a specific person or someone that, like, maybe doesn't always, that would be hard for you to get otherwise? It could be no.
I think about it. I think about that a lot, like whether or not that's the case. And if someone wants to come on, then yeah. But like, I can't really think of a large name that I really want to
Yeah.
get in, especially like, yeah, this is like the fourth time this has been asked. Like, there
Oh,
is
no.
no like if there's some huge creator that like wants to have their story known and like they're gonna use me as a vessel, cool. But like I want to know those small stories,
Yeah.
because like I said, if people want to know the story of Punk, everything that Punk does is going to be on display. If people want to know the story of Mena RD, all of Mena RD's story is going to be on full display. I had no idea about Angry Bird. Bro got a full documentary about him and his brother. That's like almost 2 hours long. Like those stories are not going to be as interesting um to me because they are such a big out there and everyone will know about it, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe as big as like someone like Shep. Like she has a pretty crazy story. A lot of people know about her because she showed up on uh on just Jay Wong's like on a YouTube
Next up.
video in the series. Yeah, next up. Like probably talking to her, that would be pretty cool. And like getting her full story. Sharpie, she has a like a podcast series where she's talking to folks, and I think Shep was the first guest.
Yeah.
Um
Sharpie's really cool.
yeah,
I like her
yeah. Shout out to
stuff.
Sharpie. She's smart by not spending a lot of time on Twitter and choosing to go everywhere else instead, and just to pop in just to say a random discourse about grapplers every now and then. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I I was trying. I thought I had somebody, but was like, no, not really, because they're gonna have all their story everywhere too. And I'm like, no,
Um,
maybe Alex Valle. I don't know, but
sure.
but I don't know. That's not really the kind of thing that this is about, and it's not really someone I'm actively thinking about. Again, his story is very storied. If you asked around, you'll probably find something that tells you his story. So no, long term.
Okay.
All this to
No.
say no.
No.
All this to really say
Um,
no.
okay. Uh, cool. Last question. So this can be big or small. This can be serious or silly. Whatever
Mhm.
you feel like answering. But are there any moments in your life that if they had gone differently, your life would be totally different? If you had chosen the different fork in the path, or if
Mhm.
the fork in the path had chosen something different for you.
I think there's actually a lot of different ones because I think it's whether or not I have an influence by some of my cousins. Um, because I see myself that I probably wouldn't have gotten all the way this way if I didn't get to be interested in something that had DIY in mind, right?
Sure.
So it's getting into punk, learning how to play instruments, getting into metal and learning about that. I think had I not or maybe even like getting into gaming earlier, um you know I grew up and around the time of what was considered the golden age of melee, but I didn't participate in any of that shit. I wasn't
Yeah.
aware of it really. I was going to punk shows, so maybe get into gaming earlier. But I think eventually it still took me down the path where I am now because of the DIY attitude of all of it. I think had I not chosen and kept tribe and community with folks that have DIY ethics in there, I probably wouldn't be where I am right now as far as the philosophies behind, doing certain things, the political ideals where I lean and land on. But as far as like actually like giving it the actual names that it is and being able to speak on it the way that I do, um, I think none of that exists without being in community and wanting to be in community with punk music and learning musical instruments in general. Um, and I think to go even further back from that, it's probably not listening to. It's probably a weirder one, but like not thinking Tony Hawk was my favorite game.
Sure. It's not that weird.
Yeah,
It's more
no,
common than you'd think.
no, definitely, it's definitely like Tony Hawk was the nexus point for a lot of people. They granted a lot of exposure to a lot of different people to a lot of different kinds of music, which um ultimately leads to choosing paths that have the spirit of what they did in those games in real life, whether it be skating, whether it be the music, whether it be art, whether it be uh again, full DIY everything. And that was before I even know what the hell it was about, right? Granted, Activision was this fucking and was this huge company or whatever, and but the weird silliness of what they put through is was super important to kind of like put me on the path that eventually gets me to where I am. What put me in my formative years and have me exist in that, and then ultimately having this conversation right now.
Sure.
So
Cool.
had what would be Madden 96 been my favorite game, I probably wouldn't be here right now or something.
It's like not getting into punk, getting into games earlier, and Madden instead of Tony Hawk. Those are the
Yeah.
big focal point turning points in your
Yeah.
life. Makes
I think
sense.
I think that's what it is. And you could I the direct line between all three of those decisions make everything so much different, I can tell.
For sure. Understood.
and
Okay.
and I
That's
that's it. We did
that's my
it.
10.
We
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 did it.
did our 10 questions. We made it to the very end, and we're gonna brushing right up against that 5 o'clock hard out time by the few minutes to spare.
This is a marathon. I'm
Hell yeah.
definitely gonna rest after this, but
What are you talking about? I think we're just barely getting started.
maybe you're
No,
getting started, you know?
yeah, exactly. No, there's a for the podcast Goods from the Woods. Like I said, they marathon doing the year in review funniest year, and it's about the day itself is about like 7 hours or 8 hours worth of podcasting with about an hour break to have lunch. But you listen to 2.5 hours on one day, one episode, and 2.5 on another. And the one guy who's consistent is Kyle Clark, who has another podcast called This Is Rad. Shout out to you, Kyle. Let me back on the podcast. I want to talk about something else this time. Yeah, just straight up the most amount of podcasting you can do in a single day, and they do it. And Kyle's there from minute one to minute whatever day ends, and they still probably hangs out and bullshits for another hour before he actually goes home. I could probably
Energy.
sit in on that. Yeah, it's good stuff. Thank you very much, man. Thank you very much for having this opportunity to talk about everything
Thanks
we
for having me.
have. I love the fact that someone had to prepare the 10 question segment.
I can't do it otherwise. It wouldn't work.
I think that is super funny that had to happen so soon. I already put the links in the description. If anyone's going to watch this later, they're going to click on those links, and chances are, if they were here, they know who you were already. But is there anything you want to shout out? Is there anything you want to put out there? And follow you on the social medias and the websites and all that jazz or whatever.
All that stuff.
What do you got for us?
Yeah, I mean, my website's granola.games. I'll put it in the chat here. You can look at the stuff that I sell. You can buy some of the stuff that I sell. I would also, we've got a Discord. You can join the Discord. Anyone can join the Discord. I think that's kind of the best place to find out stuff that I'm doing. I also, if I'm going to post on a social media, it's going to be Twitter. I don't like Twitter, though. I don't like the people that run the company, or the person that runs the company all that much. It's just sort of the social media that I'm most accustomed to. So I would like to not be on there as much, but the best place to find me is on Discord. I'm happy to answer any questions, anything people have after this. Feel free to come and just reach out, and that's again where you'd find what I'm working on and what I'm doing. I'm very open about what I'm doing, and so if you've got any questions or anything else, find me on the Discord. Otherwise, that's about it. That's it. Granola.games.
Get yourself a summit. Get yourself a camp kit. Again, I have a vested interest in the camp kit. Succeeding, because that's such a fun, silly project that's like great for tinkerers.
Oh yeah.
All right, man. Thank you very much, man. Say wave goodbye. Wave goodbye. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Peace out.
Thank you very much, man. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks. And that's it, chat. Oh my God. He had a hard out at 5, and we went all the way almost to the very end. It was pretty awesome. I love that conversation. It was whoo indeed. But I love it. It's I had a good time. It's been awesome. I love it. We love doing these kinds of things. Yeah, it's good times. Thank you for everyone who was here. Thank you for anyone that participated in the chat. Thank you for here watching. Thank you for liking and all that jazz. If you want any follow-ups on what the heck Granola is doing, again, the links are in the description. I'll put it out there again if I need to. It's buy a big summit in September. There you go. Boom. Enter promo code Straight Edge or SXE SXE Jesse, and you'll get nothing. That's not a real promo code. Thank you again for being here. Thank you for hanging out. We're going to have another one of these fairly soon. I think, maybe. I'm not sure. I didn't get to put too many more people ahead of time, so I'm going to be out there trolling Twitter and finding people who I want to hear the stories of. There's a couple of people out there that I want to reach out to again, and let's see if we can get them in. But until then, I have a couple projects in here. This is a piece of paper. I'm not going to leak, but this piece of paper right here. Yeah. Thank you for being here. We're going to be heading out. Thanks for being here. We'll see you on the very next one. Later.